Chapter 262. With the rise of the sun, the sky was like a transparent orange glass, the breeze blew, and dew rolled down from the rocks like beads. Orochimaru, who was at the front, made a few gestures to the rear, indicating that the troops should not slow down, and at the same time stepped on the ground, increasing their speed by another level. They were about to reach the core of the battlefield, so there was no need to wander around. The faster the speed, the more excited the ninjas will be. A few minutes passed in the blink of an eye. Akira Uchiha saw the main battlefield from afar, which had absorbed the blood of countless ninjas. It wasn't gray, the whole ground was soaked in blood all year round, and now it was dark red, and not far away, there were a few wood-leaf ninjas fighting with the sand ninjas. Without Orochimaru's reminder, Akira Uchiha, who was protected in the middle, directly used genjutsu. Clang! A sharp sound like a string being pulled, mixed with chakra, began to spread, and the movements of several Sakura shinobu inevitably became stiff. At the same time, Orochimaru and Shigeru immediately rushed up and directly killed several Sakura shinobu. They didn't even give the other party a chance to fight back or escape. Thank you, Orochimaru-sama and Shigeru-sama. Wood-leaf leader wiped the blood stains on his face, and then thanked Orochimaru. At this time there is no need for etiquette. Orochimaru waved his hand, and then asked, "Is there anyone who is seriously injured?" "There are 2 in the team, I don't know about the other teams." "Well, you send your 2 companions back to the camp for treatment. We will take over the core of the battlefield." Yes. Most of the combatants on the battlefield were staying up all night to fight or to investigate for a long time, so it wasn't a good choice to let these ninjas stay with them all night. In the next few minutes, they encountered several ninja squads that were fighting. With the help of Akira Uchiha's genjutsu, it was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. Orochimaru and Hatsuki Shigeru aside, Jiraiya was completely dumbfounded. This could be said to have completely changed the situation of the battle, which directly refreshed his worldview. So illusions can be used like this? From Jiraiya's point of view, even if illusion could break through the heavens, it could not be separated from the category of technique. As long as it was a technique, with the exception of some special ones, most of them required hand seals, alright? As for Akira Uchiha, the illusions he used were also the most common, but the problem was that he didn't use any hand seals. How terrifying was that? Why do ninjas need to train their hand speed from a young age? Isn't it just to release ninjutsu faster in battle? Otherwise, when you're still in the middle of forming hand seals, and the other party's 2 fire escape techniques are already coming at you, then what's the point of fighting? This is also the reason why ninjutsu without hand seals is so popular. The terrible thing about Sharingan is that it doesn't need hand seals. It can release dojutsu through the eyes, but out of sight, the ability of Sharingan will be greatly weakened. But Akira Uchiha broke this limit. He doesn't need Sharingan, he can release genjutsu through his fingers, voice, and any other medium of the 5 senses, just like Sharingan without hand seals. Although the power of genjutsu is correspondingly weakened a lot, it's more difficult to guard against, because you don't even know when you're hit by genjutsu. From Jiraiya's point of view, this is more than just a little talent in genjutsu. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's a Kekkei Genkai. Jiraiya was a little depressed. The plot in his mind should be like this. At the critical moment, he came back from the Land of Rain alone to save Wood-Leaf, then end the Shinobi World War, and finally marry Tsunade to reach the peak of life. This is the script he should use. Is everyone sure that they didn't get it wrong? Just as Jiraiya was getting more and more depressed, the remaining sand shinobis on the main battlefield were easily dealt with. In the team led by Orochimaru, only Akira Uchiha consumed some chakra, while the others only consumed a little stamina. Wood-Leaf shinobis who originally thought that they would have to help in the rear, found that they were completely overthinking it. This battle can no longer be called a battle, it's completely a one-sided massacre. Once hit by genjutsu, even if it's the lowest level, the sand shinobis will have a moment of sluggishness. And it's precisely because of this momentary flaw that Orochimaru, Hatsuki Shigeru, and Jiraiya can easily kill each other. There's a ninja in front, a very strong chakra. They continued to move forward for a while, and the scout ninja on the flank suddenly reminded them. Orochimaru made a gesture to the rear of the team, indicating them to stop first. What's wrong? Jiraiya asked. The main character is coming. Orochimaru's expression was a bit dignified. Akira Uchiha could see the approaching figure through his Sharingan, a blue trench coat, and the iconic Kazekage hat. The rear team bypasses this area from the side. Orochimaru's meaning is very simple. The third Kazekage will be held back by them, while the rear team will be responsible for Sakura Shinobu's team. After the order was issued, with Orochimaru as the leader, Hatsuki Shigeru, Jiraiya, and Akira Uchiha went straight forward. Should I give you a little praise for your courage? Before they got close, the voice of the 3 generations of Kazekage came along with the wind. The 3 generations of Kazekage. Is there no one left in the Sand Village? You have to solve all the battles. Orochimaru chuckled softly. Of course I can't compare to the flying ape Nichiren, hiding in the village forever. It's safe, but unfortunately, his disciple will die here today. The 3 generations of Kazekage stood with his hands behind his back. His robe was fluttering without wind, and a thin layer of iron sand was floating in the air. In terms of appearance, Akira Uchiha couldn't help but praise him. It seems that his appearance is still far from the top of the ninja world. 4 against 1, just right for the game. I won't say you're despicable. After all, I'm the 3 generations of Kazekage. After he finished speaking, he completed the hand seals in an instant. Magnetic sand storm. The earth quickly shook, and the iron sand hidden under the Gobi Desert showed its ferocious face at this time. It raised its head high and suddenly rushed toward Konoha's ninja. The target wasn't Akira Uchiha and the others, but would leaf ninjas further away who were preparing to go around. Different from the last time, the power of the ninjutsu was more amazing. The distance between them and wood leaf ninjas was more than 1 kilometer, but the magnetic sand didn't show any signs of weakening. The 3 generations of Kazekage showed a mocking expression, as if they were baiting Orochimaru to attack. Although they wanted to attack, there were more important things to do. Orochimaru quickly bit his finger and pressed his hand on the ground after completing the summoning hand seals. Summoning jutsu, Rashomon. Along with the sound of bells and chains, a huge blue door rose from the ground. In the next moment, the iron sand hit the door like a torrent. The 3 generations of Kazekage shook their heads in disdain. A Rashomon really is looking down on me. The last time we fought, I was able to block it because I didn't use my full strength. Sure enough, the door was submerged in the rolling iron sand like a broken dam. Chapter 263. The Rashomon that was rumored to be able to separate life and death only lasted for 3 seconds before it was drowned by the iron sand. However, Orochimaru didn't look surprised at all. Since he couldn't block it, he could only rely on his teammates. Sure enough, in the next second, Jiraiya jumped out and pressed his hands on the ground. Toad's mouth binding technique. With chakra filling in a large amount, a red sack-like meat wall kept wriggling out of the ground. The iron sand, which was originally very powerful, was swallowed like a clay ox entering the sea after coming into contact with the meat wall. Jiraiya smiled proudly. The stomach of Mount Myaboka's rock toad could be used to defend and trap the opponent, so it could naturally swallow this iron sand. As for whether it would burst or not, don't be silly. The rock toad's size may not be comparable to the slug sage, but it was amazing enough. The intestines of an ordinary person could reach 6 or 7 meters long, not to mention this native monster. In any case, Jiraiya was extremely confident in this ninjutsu. In his view, the ninja that could destroy the toad wall hadn't been born yet. Good defense. Orochimaru, who took a step back, praised. In fact, he could also block the iron sand of 3 generations of Kazekage. He could block it, but it wasn't necessary. After all, as the number of Rashomon increased, more chakra would be consumed, and the burden would be heavier. They were a small team. As long as they blocked it for a while, there would naturally be other teammates to continue to share the burden. This was the essence and advantage of teamwork. Hearing his friend's praise, Jiraiya nodded without any reservation. With this kind of opportunity, how could he not show off? So he played it down and said, as long as I have enough chakra, not to mention this little iron sand, I can even swallow Shikaku. Orochimaru was speechless. With enough chakra, a fifth layer psychic realm Rashomon, wouldn't it be like drinking water? Why would I need you? Moreover, among them, except for Jiraiya, the others seemed to have fought with the tailed beasts. This was especially true for Akira Uchiha, who had faced tailed beasts the most. Therefore, the three of them still had lingering fears about the dreadfulness of tailed beasts. Why did Jiraiya make it sound like tailed beasts were no different from cats and dogs? Therefore, Orochimaru came to a conclusion. Jiraiya must have fallen off a cliff in the land of rain. Either he had a fortuitous encounter, or his brain was damaged. Seeing that the iron sand had been swallowed up, Jiraiya could only dissipate his toad wall. After all, the 3 generations of Kazekage were flying in the sky. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't hit them. Fire style, Phoenix Immortal Flower Claw. As a member of the Uchiha clan, although Akira Uchiha rarely used the fire escape technique, he was actually very proficient in it. Several flames the size of a human head were attached to the flying shurikens. They were like phoenix immortals scattered all over the sky as they smashed towards the 3 generations of Kazekage in the sky. This was the disadvantage of being in the air. It was not as convenient to move on the ground. Moreover, when combined with the fire escape shurikens, the trajectory was more tricky. Therefore, the 3 generations of Kazekage waved his hand. Another layer of iron sand flowed out from his scroll and densely covered his surroundings. The fire escape technique hit the iron sand, making a tearing sound. At the same time, the iron sand also fell from the sky due to the scorching heat. At the same time, Shigeru pulled out his white fang dagger and slashed 3 times towards the sky. Then, the chakra blade with electric arcs attacked the sky. In the blink of an eye, it expanded to 5 or 6 meters long. Clang! The iron sand and the chakra blade collided with each other. It was like a knife sliding across glass, making a sharp and ear-piercing noise. Not bad swordsmanship. The 3 generations of Kazekage gave a condescending comment, as if he was teaching the younger generation. At the same time, they floated down from the sky. It may be safe in the sky, but it also completely limits his speed and taijutsu. Moreover, he found that using the iron sand attack like this really can't do anything to the cooperation of several people. After all, the magnet release really can't compare to the dust release of the 3rd generation Tsuchikage. Although they are both dojutsu, the 3rd generation Tsuchikage is obviously a higher level. Since the 3 generations of Kazekage came down from the sky, Orochimaru and Shigeru were not polite and directly rushed over. At the same time, Akira Uchiha also followed. This was the plan that was set before. Orochimaru and Shigeru were the sharp knives to attack the 3 generations of Kazekage, and Akira Uchiha played the important role of support. As long as the genjutsu is successful, Shigeru and Orochimaru are confident that they can break the thick iron sand defense of the 3 generations of Kazekage. As for Jiraiya, he was harassing them with long-range attacks, and was ready to replace Orochimaru or Shigeru at any time. In any case, the 4 of them were ready to fight a war of attrition. At this time, Tsunade and Luquan should have already brought Wood Leaf's troops. As long as they delay the 3 generations of Kazekage, this war should be won. In fact, the situation at this time was exactly the same as when the Sannin faced Hanzo. But at that time, Wood Leaf had to deal with the rock, sand and rain villages, so naturally he couldn't bring out more troops. But now he only needed to deal with the sand village. The young Sannin are naturally not Hanzo's opponents, but now Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Shigeru have grown up for 2 years, plus Akira Uchiha. So what if the 4 of them face the 3 generations of Kazekage who are not as good as Hanzo? Although no one said anything, they all had their own ideas. The 3 generations of Kazekage also had their own ideas. For him, even if he can't kill these 4, he still has to kill 1 or 2. Otherwise, if these people grow up, how will the Sand Village fight in the next Shinobi World War? So in the face of Orochimaru and Shigeru's attacks, he waved his right hand and condensed 7 or 8 spears from the iron sand on the ground. These spears made of pure iron sand have an extremely strong tearing force when he deliberately uses magnet release to vibrate at high speed. Shoot jutsu. When he saw several spears, Shigeru was almost approaching the 3 generations of Kazekage, but in the face of the sudden appearance of these spears, he didn't stop and continued to rush forward. Hidden Shadow Mini Snake's hand. In the next second, countless pythons shot out from Orochimaru's sleeves and wrapped around the iron sand, forcibly changing their trajectory. At the same time, Akira Uchiha's Sharingan locked onto the 3 generations of Kazekage and was about to release a genjutsu, but the 3 generations of Kazekage had already disappeared. They were as fast as ever. Although he could see the movements of the 3 generations of Kazekage clearly, it was still too difficult for him to use genjutsu. With the sound of metal clashing, Akira Uchiha looked back and saw Shigeru and the Kazekage engaged in a fierce battle. The white light of chakra on White Fang almost formed a straight line, and in an instant, it swept past the Kazekage's vital points 5 times. Ding 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 ding. For a moment, the sound of White Fang's short sword colliding with the iron sand filled Akira Uchiha's eardrums. At this moment, he seemed to see the scene of a snail shell possessing his body and madly forging 30 pieces of iron. But it was useless. Shigeru, who had transformed into a small blacksmith from Milan, didn't cause any damage to the 3 generations of Kazekage. Seeing this, Akira Uchiha seemed to understand a principle. Everyone's forging process may be different, but the final result is the same. Chapter 264. Seeing that he was falling into a disadvantage step by step, Orochimaru couldn't help but start to think about what to do while fighting. What could he do? The most despairing battle wasn't when you couldn't hit your opponent, but when you couldn't deal any damage. This feeling was like a toothpick stirring a vat, or an earthworm strolling in the sea. No matter how often you hit, it was useless. Hey, why did Orochimaru suddenly think of Jiraiya when he mentioned earthworms? He was a bit absent-minded, feeling a sense of déjà vu. However, in this kind of battle, how can he be distracted? The Kazekage was a veteran, and he caught Orochimaru's flaw in an instant, and he raised his hand and threw a spear at him. Bang, 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 bang. For shurikens drew a beautiful arc, accurately hitting the end of the spear and forcibly changing its trajectory. But the spear was too fast. Although its trajectory had been changed, it still left a wound on Orochimaru's smooth face, and blood immediately flowed out. 3 generations of Kazekage shook his head, somewhat regretting that it didn't work. He didn't expect this attack to seriously injure Orochimaru, but when he hurriedly blocked, he would inevitably reveal more flaws, which was what he wanted. But he didn't expect that Akira Uchiha's Sharingan would predict it in advance. This shuriken technique was really exquisite. As expected of someone from the Uchiha clan, 3 generations of Kazekage was a bit emotional. Of the 4, the one he wanted to kill the most was Akira Uchiha. To be able to participate in a battle of this level at such a young age was really frightening. He didn't dare to imagine how far he would grow in the future. But Akira Uchiha just didn't go forward, and kept hiding in the back. What kind of support was this? Was there a support that watched from the sidelines in a team battle? The thought of this made him unhappy. However, even though he was unhappy, he still had to put on a mocking expression on his face. Moreover, his acting skills had to be superb. It would be best if the other party could not suppress the anger in his heart, and wanted to come up and slap him twice. In a battle like this, calmness was very important. As long as one of the 4 started to act impulsively, the 3 generations of Kazekage could say that they had already won half the battle. He was a young man after all. Who wouldn't be angry? Sure enough, Orochimaru, who had taken a step back, looked at the 3 generations of Kazekage with a gloomy expression. Although he wasn't injured, he still didn't look good. After all, he was 22 years old, and could be considered to have experienced hundreds of battles. How could he make such a low-level mistake? Hey Orochimaru, can you do it or not? If you can't hold on, it's my turn. I've waited for so long, let me have some fun. Jiraiya, who was not far away, said frivolously. His tone made it seem as if the 3 generations of Kazekage were just girls in a brothel. Orochimaru was also stunned. His anxious heart seemed to have calmed down in an instant. Hence he took a deep breath, stuck out his tongue, and licked his lips. No problem, leave it to me. Akira Uchiha was speechless. Even the effect of a tranquilizer wasn't that exaggerated. Jiraiya was indeed Orochimaru's lubricant. That feeling was like milk, indulging in the smoothness of silk. "Are you guys done chatting? Come help me." The forgotten Shigeru couldn't help but want to curse. After a few rounds of attack and defense, his body was covered with more injuries. There was even a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. "I'm already in this state, and you bunch of animals still have the mood to flirt." Honest people like Shigeru generally don't curse, but as long as he did, the effect would definitely be outstanding. But he was also forced to do this. The dissociative type of iron sand shield caused a lot of damage to him. Although it could penetrate this layer of iron sand shield, the subsequent attacks were powerless. This dissociative type of ninjutsu was generally controlled by the caster's subconsciousness. The better the caster's subconsciousness, the more amazing the reaction speed of the iron sand shield. 3 generations of Kazekage was undoubtedly the best in this regard. The iron sand shield could not only keep up with White Fang's speed, but also perfectly resist every attack. After a few rounds of confrontation, Shigeru's body inevitably had more injuries. There was no other way, he had to exchange injuries. After deliberately showing an opening, the 3 generations of Kazekage mercilessly stabbed Shigeru's arm with the iron sand weapon. But at this moment, he also locked the 3 generations of Kazekage's body. Akira Uchiha, who understood, immediately threw a 98K. The strange strength kunai made a rumbling sound like a cannonball, and instantly shot towards the 3 generations of Kazekage. But this wasn't enough. After throwing the kunai, Chidori's sharp spear followed closely behind and stabbed deeply into the Kazekage's arm. It wasn't that Akira Uchiha didn't want to stab a more vital part, but the moment the Kazekage was locked, a large amount of iron sand quickly protected his vital parts. In order to ensure that he could break through the defense, Akira Uchiha could only stab at the arm that was relatively weaker. Sure enough, the kunai only pierced through the iron sand weapon and fell down. Then Chidori's sharp spear pierced through the small hole like a needle. Without waiting to see the results, Akira Uchiha immediately dispelled the right un in his hand, and retreated together with Shigeru. Immediately after, countless spears made of iron sand bombarded the area like raindrops, blowing up all the gobi in the surrounding area. It was as if the land had been reclaimed. "You guys back off a little." Orochimaru's voice sounded behind them. At this moment, he rushed forward with Jiraiya to provide support. His eyes were much colder than before. He had already formed the summoning seal and reached out his hand. A huge python rushed out from his sleeve, and opened its bloody mouth to bite the Kazekage. At the same time, there was a sharp object in the python's huge mouth. If one looked closely, it was a white longsword. After the giant snake poked its head out, countless iron sand spears smashed on its body. But because of its thick flesh and huge body, it wasn't afraid of the iron sand spears at all. While its body was riddled with bloody wounds, it raised its head high and opened its mouth towards the 3 generations of Kazekage. Endless Kusanagi sword shadow clones spewed out of its mouth, and their speed was not slower than the Kazekage's iron sand shuriken. This kind of attack can blind dogs in the daytime. Even if it's just a projection, it has amazing destructive power, not to mention such a large number of them. The 3 generations of Kazekage wanted to use the body flicker technique to leave at this time, but suddenly found that his feet had been entangled by a mass of long white hair. While the long hair was constantly tightening, the iron-like hair had pierced deeply into his skin, and the sudden sharp pain made him feel absent-minded. In the next second, the sword rain formed by the Kusanagi sword drowned him like a meteor, just like what he did to the Woodleaf Ninja at the beginning. So it's not unreasonable to say that every dog has its day. Chapter 265. Under Orochimaru's 10,000 swords returned to origin, they finally succeeded in suppressing the 3 generations of Kazekage. "Did you kill it?" Jiraiya, who contributed to the crowd control at the critical moment, suddenly asked. Hearing this sentence, Akira Uchiha really wanted to stamp his size 36 ninja shoes on Jiraiya's face. Doesn't he know that when this kind of words is spoken, it often means that he didn't kill him? Well, Akira Uchiha admitted that he also had this kind of thought. But even if he used his knee to think, he knew that it was impossible. The 3 generations of Kazekage, who had the title of strongest, really thought that he relied on his peers' mutual praise? Of course, this kind of suspicion also existed. In short, under the protection of the Iron Sand Shield, even if the Kusanagi swords were sharp, what they could do was very limited, coupled with the fact that the Iron Sand Shield itself had offensive properties, and so many Kusanagi swords were made in the form of shadow clones. Although the momentum was great, the damage it could cause was limited. As the smoke and dust caused by the explosion dissipated, in the center of the pit formed by the ninjutsu, there was a pure black iron sand ball. After a while, the iron sand returned to the black torrent on the ground, revealing the 3 generations of Kazekage, who had some injuries but were not fatal. The 3 generations of Kazekage wiped the blood on his hands. The expression on his face was a bit ferocious. In his view, this was already a kind of humiliation. As a Kage of a village, he was suppressed by 4 juniors. How could he mix in the ninja circle in the future, especially in front of the 3rd Naruto? He wouldn't be able to raise his head for the rest of his life. You all of you must die. With his roar, the iron sand shield suddenly burst, and the fine iron sand seemed to turn into deadly fragments, forcibly separating Orochimaru and Shigeru. In the next second, after completing the complicated hand seals, he waved his hand, and 1 iron sand spear after another flew out of the black torrent on the ground. The high-speed vibration made them look bigger than they actually were. Each spear was at least 3 meters long. Iron sand attack. Looking at such a fierce and dense attack, Orochimaru reached out and took back the Kusanagi sword from the mouth of the giant serpent. Under such an attack, ordinary weapons can't block it. Sure enough, the high-speed vibration of the iron sand quickly gathered at the tip of the Kusanagi sword, making a series of screeching sounds and countless sparks. But the Kusanagi sword is, after all, the attack of the sword. It couldn't be damaged by such a small attack. Although the progress was slow, it was still able to withstand the attack inch by inch. The spear was with Shigegyuo's white fang. Shursui, like the thunder god, continuously cut iron sand spear continuously cut, the iron spear won. Of course Shigetu, Shiguru, and Shigejasido create space is S of say of Kazu, and create to create, and create to create space. Can. S cans of. S of them. Of Shimamaru. S of is to, of looking at his opponent. Orochimaru's eyes were unprecedentedly serious. 2 years ago, in the Land of Rain, he already experienced that feeling of powerlessness. At that time, if Hanzo didn't hold back, all 3 of them would have been dead. But now he has grown. He desperately wants to fight with ninjas of this level again and defeat them. But dreams are plentiful, reality is bony. Sandaime Kazekage was so angry that he started to use all kinds of ninjutsu to attack Konoha. 3 generations of Kazekage directly kicked Orochimaru's ribs, sending him flying like a meteor. Cough. Orochimaru, who was coughing up blood, felt a little uncomfortable. If it wasn't for the softening of his body, he suspected that this kick would have broken his ribs. Bang! The sound of a giant object falling to the ground suddenly came from the ground. Akira Uchiha didn't need to think to know that Jiraiya must have summoned his favorite toad of Mount Mayaboku. But would a summoned beast be useful in this kind of battle? He was very doubtful. Shun, can you make the 3 generations of Kazekage fall for Genjutsu? I have a way to destroy this iron sand. Akira Uchiha was stunned. He looked at the serious Jiraiya, then raised his head and looked at the 3 generations of Kazekage, who was fighting Shigeru inside the iron sand barrier. This can't go on like this. Akira Uchiha gritted his teeth and said, "Let's fight." So, he immediately created a shadow clone. The shadow clone nodded, then grabbed Shimamaru's arm and threw him into the sky. When his body reached the highest point, Akira Uchiha somersaulted 1.5 times, then did a 360-degree Thomas. At the same time, 8 kunai were shot towards the ground. The iron sand automatically blocked the kunai. Sensing the attack from behind, the 3 generations of Kazekage kicked Shigeru away. Then he turned around and saw Akira Uchiha descending from the sky. Their eyes met. The moment Akira Uchiha's eyes met with the 3 generations of Kazekage's, The genjutsu that he had prepared immediately attacked. Magical illusion, shackle technique. In an instant, the 4 iron sand behind the 3 generations of Kazekage flew over and stabbed at him, sealing off his space of descent. Chidori style. Akira Uchiha, who was in midair, couldn't help but curse. The 3 generations of Kazekage was still able to casually shoot at him at a time like this. If it weren't for the Chidori style's defensive means, he wouldn't even know how he died. Fortunately, the genjutsu finally succeeded. After fighting for so long, this was the only time it succeeded. It can only last for a few seconds. He reminded Jiraiya. As a Sharingan's unique golden bind genjutsu, in the spiritual world constructed by the caster, the captured person's limbs would feel as if they were being driven into a wedge. This was also the strongest genjutsu Akira Uchiha had mastered so far. But there was still the problem. With his current strength, even with this level of genjutsu, he could only control the 3 generations of Kazekage for a few seconds. Naturally, it couldn't compare to Itachi's valiant record of controlling Orochimaru. After all, Itachi already had the Mangekyo at that time, and his eye power was much higher than Akira Uchiha's. What could he do in a few seconds? Killing the 3 generations of Kazekage definitely wasn't enough. The self-disciplined iron sand around the 3 generations of Kazekage was still operating loyally, forming a huge shield. Even if Shigeru used his most powerful ninjutsu, he might not be able to break through it. "You guys leave quickly," Jiraiya shouted loudly, and at the same time, he began to make hand seals. Shigeru originally wanted to go up and slash a few times, but when he heard this, he immediately teleported away. Akira Uchiha, who fell from the sky, also quickly made a wind release hand seal, carrying himself farther away. Fire release toad oil bomb. The overwhelming flame was composed of Gamabunta's oil and Jiraiya's fire release. At the same time, the shadow clone that had already made hand seals opened its mouth. Infinite wind release breakthrough. This was a mixed ninjutsu performed by one person, and it reached the level of several wood-leaf jonins working together. The overwhelming flame whistled in front of Akira Uchiha, and under the improvement of infinite wind release, this mixed ninjutsu showed signs of developing into an S-class ninjutsu. As a flame manipulator, this was the first time Akira Uchiha saw this level of fire release. At this moment, he just wanted to double-click 666, and then shout 2 times, and finally do a social shake. If he wasn't in the air. The power of fire release was huge. The 3 generations of Kazekage woke up faster than expected because of the pain. But at this time, he couldn't dodge. Magnetic sand defense. The iron sand in the surroundings gathered around him like crazy, forming a huge triangular iron sand barrier that perfectly wrapped him up. The dense sand grains formed an airtight wall. Not to mention the current flame. Even water might not be able to penetrate it. In the next moment, the endless flame swallowed the 3 generations of Kazekage. For a short time, he could still guarantee his life, but under this ultra-high temperature flame, the small iron sand particles were easily burned red. The continuous burning effect caused by the toad oil bomb lasted for nearly 2 minutes, and the entire iron sand barrier was constantly melting. And at the same time, this mixed ninjutsu that was close to an S-class ninjutsu finally ended. But it wasn't over yet. Seeing the fire release dissipated, Gamabunta's thick mouth bulged. Bang 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 bang. 4 large water balls were shot out from his mouth, and quickly fell on the iron sand that was burned red by the fire release. For a time, a large amount of water vapor blocked everyone's sight. And in addition to the sudden burst of water vapor, continuous cracking sounds were constantly coming out. This was the sound of the iron sand being damaged under the influence of 2 different temperatures. Thinking about it carefully, if the iron sand that the 3 generations of Kazekage was proud of was gone, then as a Kageteer, how much would his strength fall? Using 2 extreme attributes of ninjutsu to destroy the Kazekage's iron sand. This was the problem that Jiraiya had been thinking about before the battle. If he wanted to destroy the Kazekage's iron sand, it was impossible to rely on hand-to-hand combat, even if he used the mutual explosion tag. In the case of such a large amount of iron sand, only ninjutsu could achieve effective and large-scale destruction. Fortunately, Jiraiya succeeded. The continuous sounds of explosions were the best evidence. If Akira Uchiha knew Jiraiya's thoughts, he probably couldn't help but praise. You are a fucking genius. Chapter 266. When the steam dissipated, 3 generations of Kazekage was finally revealed from the thick smoke. He didn't have time to dodge and could only defend in a hurry. Although he wasn't directly hit by fire release or water release, the steam was pervasive. Half of his face, which was originally sharp and angular, was now burned. Not only his face, but even his exposed arms were severely burned. This kind of feeling was comparable to Pakura's steam kill. But how could it be said? So far, the one who caused the most damage to 3 generations of Kazekage wasn't Shigeru, nor was it Orochimaru, who wanted to kill them, but Jiraiya, who was crazily watching from the side. This was quite awkward. I want you all to die. 3 generations of Kazekage's ferocious expression, coupled with his burned face, was quite abstract. Magnetic release, iron sand realm. Under the influence of chakra, a large amount of iron sand began to gather from the edge of the area. While the entire ground shook violently, a part of it flew into the sky. This ninjutsu was 3 generations of Kazekage's ultimate move, so its power and momentum were naturally astonishing. As for why he didn't use it before? Come on, how could he use his ultimate move first in a team battle? Not to mention that this move consumed a lot of chakra's mana. 3 generations of Kazekage didn't think highly of these 4 people before the battle. He had the idea of getting a quadruple kill first, and then coming back for a team battle. If he could make a big comeback in the late game, wouldn't it be perfect? Unfortunately, dreams were plentiful, but reality was cruel. His teammates hadn't even collapsed yet, but he was already at critical health. Left with no other choice, he could only throw away this kind of trump card. However, they weren't the kind of people who would obediently wait for their opponents to finish preparing their ultimate move. Shigeru and Orochimaru carried White Fang and attacked 3 generations of Kazekage. Akira Uchiha on the side also quickly snapped his fingers, and a genjutsu was sent over. This genjutsu was naturally ineffective before, but Jiraiya's fire release broke through 3 generations of Kazekage's tortoise shell, and the iron sand blocking their ears was gone. Only 1 second. Akira Uchiha reminded them again, and then rushed forward with kunai. After all, this wasn't a Sharingan genjutsu, so it was much shorter than before. At this time, Shigeru and Orochimaru had already appeared beside 3 generations of Kazekage. 1 second wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. In this time, Orochimaru's sword slashed Kazekage's shoulder, and Shigeru's short sword stabbed Kazekage's chest. Without the protection of the iron sand shield, 3 generations of Kazekage's defense was no different from an ordinary ninja. Even if they didn't die, they would be half dead. However, Akira Uchiha felt that something was strange. Could it be that there was an unspoken rule on the battlefield that didn't allow the killing of Kage from enemy villages? Otherwise, why did Orochimaru and Shigeru both avoid their vitals at the same time? But when he thought about it again, he found that something was wrong. The number of Kage who died on the battlefield was not small. Not to mention, second Naruto died in the Land of Lightning. The living 3 generations of Kazekage are more valuable than the dead. Jiraiya, who came over, seemed to see Akira Uchiha's doubts and quickly explained, "Only the living can create the greatest value." Akira Uchiha nodded. Indeed, such a great shinobi war isn't about life and death. For the real upper-class interest groups, the most important thing is to create more favorable conditions. Not to mention other things. At least the living 3 generations of Kazekage are worth a lot of money. What, the daimyo don't want to pay? Don't be ridiculous, it's already shameful for the Kazekage to be captured. If they don't want to pay the ransom, then the village should be dissolved as soon as possible. And Akira Uchiha really wanted to say, "Don't think too much. It's a tradition of the Kazekage to be captured. You will soon get used to it. Since you can't resist, learn to enjoy it." Seeing that the Kazekage was about to open his eyes at this time, Orochimaru quickly made several hand seals, then slapped the Kazekage's head, and finally hit the Kazekage's neck, making him enter a state of unconsciousness. Then he took out a sealing scroll from his ninja bag, and took out a bundle of strong hemp rope from it, skillfully tied the unconscious 3 generations of Kazekage, and easily carried him on his shoulder. It's just a small trick to seal chakra. Looking at Akira Uchiha's strange eyes, Orochimaru rarely explained. Akira Uchiha was a little speechless. How can he not see that it's sealing chakra? But how many times have you done it to have such a skillful technique? Sure enough, success was never easy. Even trafficking was a job that required skill. Let's go to the main battlefield. Jiraiya, send a message of victory to the Jonin captain over there. It's time to end this boring war. Okay. Jiraiya nodded excitedly, with a triumphant expression on his face. He contributed the most in this battle, and no one will snatch this credit from him. Thinking that with this reputation, maybe Tsunade will agree to be his girlfriend, Jiraiya couldn't help but show a wretched smile. If he had a tail, he would probably be able to fly to the sky by wagging it. Everyone thought so. Just like the lyrics of the song. I'm here to see you for the rest of my life. This is probably the truest portrayal of Jiraiya. After a while, seeing that he still didn't move, Orochimaru impatiently said, Hey Jiraiya, hurry up. Wait a minute. I'm naming my and Tsunade's child. In desperation, Shigeru could only summon 2 eagles. This kind of small ninja beast is a skill that must be learned as a commander. Soon, the eagles flew into the sky, and the high-pitched screech echoed around the battlefield. At the same time, Orochimaru and Akira Uchiha, carrying the 3 generations of Kazekage, ran to the last battle area. The eagle's screech in the sky lasted for a long time. The Sand Village didn't understand this secret signal, but the Wood Leaf Captain was very clear in his heart. This is the signal of victory. The Wood Leaf ninjas who fought in the country of Kawanoku know the name of the strongest Kazekage of the 3 generations of Kazekage. Even if they have the greatest confidence in Orochimaru, most of the Jonins think that they are not enough. After all, that is a person who is as famous as the Naruto. This war that started in the Land of Rain, and went on for 4 years, is it going to end? At this moment, Tsunade, who was standing on the head of the giant slug, suddenly shouted, Wood Leaf ninjas, the 3 generations of Kazekage have lost, we won this war. Now the village is behind, your parents and children are waiting for you to come home. So what are you hesitating for? Let this group of rats hear our roar, see our momentum, and the blood on our hands, the strength of our backs, and the will of the fire in our hearts. Ninjas, fight for the Wood Leaf ninjas. Her voice, mixed with chakra, quickly spread throughout the battlefield. For a time, countless ninjas raised their heads and looked at the woman who has been rushing to the front covered in blood. A sense of pride surged in the hearts of every Wood Leaf ninja. Everyone go kill this group of trash. Go. Chapter 267. From a certain point of view, Orochimaru and the Kazekage are very fated. For example, the 3 generations of Kazekage that he killed in the future, or the 4th generation of Kazekage that he killed in the future. If Akira Uchiha and Tsunade are the puppeteers, then Orochimaru is called the Terminator of the Kazekage. Akira Uchiha even had some malicious speculations. When Orochimaru went to save the 5 Kages, he saw Gaara lying on the ground. Was he suppressing his restless heart? Well, it seems that we are going a bit too far. Let's continue to talk about the situation on the battlefield. In short, before going to the main battlefield, Orochimaru took into account that there may be more battles, so he summoned the 10,000 snake in advance. Although this snake had a bad attitude, a bad snake character, and always liked to ask for sacrifices, it did have some skills in terms of combat power. And it's not just a matter of combat power, but its extremely huge body brings a sense of oppression. So when they stood on the head of the 10,000 snake and looked down at the battlefield, almost all the ninjas stopped moving, including Tsunade, who had just boosted their morale. Orochimaru said in a hoarse voice, Wood Leaf ninjas, Wood Leaf has won this war. His tone was not very excited, and no one would be too excited to see the bloodstained ground. There are too many people who have died here. Orochimaru looked down at the sand shinobi who were stunned, surprised and disbelieving, and said loudly again, "Look carefully, what is this in my hand?" He raised the 3 generations of Kazekage with an attitude, as if he was just holding a piece of trash. But in the next moment, a sharp and hoarse female voice tore through the silence of the battlefield. Woodleaf's White Fang. A figure suddenly jumped out of the crowd of Sand Village. She didn't seem to be worried about the kidnapped Kazekage, nor was she afraid of the 10,000 snake. Even Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Akira Uchiha were ignored by her. Her target was very clear, Hatsuki Shigeru, who was carrying a short sword. At this moment, Chiyo didn't care about anything else. The 3 generations of Kazekage, the war, or even her own safety, she didn't care. She just wanted Woodleaf's White Fang to die. But from Woodleaf's point of view, Shigeru's act of killing the enemy was undoubtedly Woodleaf's hero. Since Chiyo wanted to kill, of course, the sand ninjas of Woodleaf of Kazekage would of course. In an instant, the atmosphere quickly returned from the shock and disbelief to a state of mutual hostility. There was no need for anyone to give an order. Most of the Woodleaf ninjas completed the hand seals, and in the next second, various kinds of mixed ninjutsu were thrown towards Chiyo, who was in mid-air. As the strongest puppeteer today, Chiyo didn't panic. She waved her hand, and a blue seal scroll flew out from her cuff, and as the white smoke dissipated, a group of puppets appeared on the battlefield. White secret technique, Kusatsu Ten. With the rapid shaking of Chiyo's fingers, the puppets' mouths produced a suction force, forming a strong tornado on the ground. Then the mixed ninjutsu of Woodleaf of Kazekage arrived. More than 20 jonin joined forces to cast a mixed wind and fire ninjutsu. And when they approached the puppets, they were absorbed. But this kind of super strong mixed ninjutsu was not so easy to resolve. The 3 puppets responsible for absorbing the ninjutsu were overwhelmed at the same time, and there were faint signs of collapse. But even so, Chiyo didn't give up. She continued to fill the puppets with chakra to stabilize them. Feeling a slight vibration beside him, Akira Uchiha looked up and found that Shigeru was running towards Chiyo. As Jiraiya said, at this time, the life and death of a ninja is no longer important. A living ninja is always more valuable than a dead ninja, not to mention a ninja of Chiyo's level. As long as they capture her, they can exchange for enough benefits in the future. As for being despicable? Don't joke, this is not a game, this is a shinobi world war. As long as it is beneficial to the village, any means can be used. At this time, most of the Sakura shinobu did not choose to fight. Even the several puppeteers directly led by Chiyo were the same. Now the only one who was still fighting was Chiyo, but she was not fighting for the Kazekage, but for her son and daughter-in-law who were killed by White Fang. In this case, it seems that surrendering is the only right way. Almost all of the Sakura shinobu thought so. After all, even the Kazekage, Sama, has become a captive. What's the point of continuing to fight? They don't have the will of the sand. Even the village imitated Woodleaf's one country, one village system. After a few jumps, Shigeru came to Chiyo's side. Seeing her enemy, Chiyo's expression was as ferocious as an evil spirit, but in this situation, she can't do much. Most of her chakra was used to fight against Woodleaf's joint ninjutsu, and she can only move her fingers to control several puppets to besiege White Fang. But Shigeru himself is very strong against the puppeteers. If it's a normal situation, he may not be able to do anything to her, but now, he casually dodged a few times, and finally mercilessly hit Chiyo's neck with the back of his sword, knocking out the poor woman who lost her son. Sand Shinobi, now there are 2 paths in front of you. Orochimaru's voice was very calm, and he threw the unconscious Kazekage on top of Manda's head. You can choose to continue to resist, and fight to the end, but no matter what the result is, we will not let you go. No one in Sakura Shinobu spoke. Almost all of them were waiting for Orochimaru to say the second path. The second path is for you to surrender unconditionally. Correspondingly, you will not be treated as prisoners of war. If you surrender, you can withdraw from the battlefield and go back to your village without any loss. The battlefield was originally evenly matched, but after Woodleaf joined Orochimaru and Shigeru, it became extremely unbalanced, and Kazekage and Chiyo were captured at this time. Woodleaf already had the upper hand. But Orochimaru didn't choose to forcibly take this group of people back to Woodleaf as prisoners of war, or kill them all. Although this will create some value, it will definitely cause a fierce backlash from Sakura Shinobu, causing more unnecessary casualties. The purpose of a shinobi war is never to kill, profit is eternal. After a long time, finally, one of the Sakura Shinobu raised his hand. From his appearance, he seemed to be just an ordinary Sand Chunin. I surrender. I don't want to continue to fight. These words seemed to have exhausted all his courage. Yes. Orochimaru nodded and said, "You can go." Is that so? After hearing Orochimaru's words, the Sakura Shinobu hurriedly bowed and hurriedly ran away from the battlefield. I also surrender. Me too. In this kind of situation, as long as one person took the lead, the rest would be much smoother. In just a few minutes, all the Sakura Shinobu chose to surrender, and then scrambled to escape from the battlefield. The whole process took less than 10 minutes, and only Woodleaf Shinobi Chiyo and 3 generations of Kazekage were left on the battlefield. It was like a joke. Chapter 268. When the Woodleaf army set off, it was already 3 days later. Unlike the last time in the Land of Rain, it had been more than 10 years since the First Shinobi World War. Many people, including the commander, didn't have much experience. But this time, everyone was familiar with the process and packed everything they needed to take away in the shortest time possible. Of course, the most troublesome thing wasn't the personal belongings, but the supplies and provisions for the thousands of ninjas. In addition, there were the corpses of the Woodleaf ninjas who died on the battlefield. Many of them were badly mutilated, but as long as their clothes had the characteristics of the Woodleaf ninjas, they must be brought back to the village and buried together under the Monument of Heroes. These people were the heroes of this war. In addition to giving their loved ones a good pension, this is the only thing that Konoha can do. At dusk, Akira Uchiha sat alone in the grain transport truck. He couldn't concentrate on reading the ninjutsu scroll he carried with him, so he supported his cheek and looked out of the window. Outside the window was a barren field because of the war. He began to imagine the land in front of him being covered by crops. That scenery is still desirable, he thought. In fact, the dusk in the Land of River gave Akira Uchiha a strange sense of strangeness. Without the sound of kunai colliding, without the impact of explosive tags, and without the situation of ninjas fighting, this barren country could be so peaceful. Peace is good. He looked at the slowly sinking dusk and said to himself, Da-da-da. Footsteps came from behind him. Akira Uchiha didn't look back. He could tell who it was just by listening to the frequency of the footsteps. Chun, I brought you dinner. Ji-Lu said a little stiffly. Although she has been calling him by his name for a long time, she was still not used to the intimate way of calling him by his name, so it was a little awkward. Therefore, when she called Watergate and Rope Tree, she always called them Senju-kun and Watergate-kun. Didn't you already have dinner? Akira Uchiha turned to look at Ji-Lu. She wasn't wearing her Jonin vest today. She was wearing a tight purple ninja suit with black stockings on her legs. She looked very beautiful. You're not full yet, are you? Ji-Lu forced himself to find an excuse and handed the bowl to Akira Uchiha. Helplessly, he could only reach out and take the bowl and chopsticks. Then he leaned against the window of the carriage and started eating. Ji-Lu blinked his eyes and sat down on the carriage. Chun, what were you looking at? I'm looking at this land, and I suddenly feel that this place is very unfamiliar. Yeah, I'm not used to it without war. That's right. The war is over. It's time for peace to be restored. War is always a sad topic, and it is easy to evoke bad memories, especially when so many ninjas died here, and many of them were companions that they knew. Therefore, Akira Uchiha changed the topic and asked, Have your 2 brothers returned to the village? He naturally knew why Ji-Lu was here today. After all, delivering food wasn't her style. But the girl didn't say anything, so Akira Uchiha could only speak up himself. Well, the clan brought them back a few months ago. Ji-Lu stared at the stone under her feet. My father's eyes. The situation is getting worse. Akira Uchiha nodded. At that time, on the battlefield of the Land of Rain, Hyuga Sky used an extremely powerful ninjutsu. He also saw it, but he didn't expect the price to be so serious. This matter is actually still a secret, and only a few people know about it. After all, it's related to the Byakugan and the Hyuga clan's patriarch. But his sensei is Orochimaru. As the most beloved and relied-on disciple of Sandaime Naruto, Uncle Snake couldn't hide anything from his eyes. And when Orochimaru knew about it, he naturally told Akira Uchiha. Through long-term scientific observation, he found that his disciple has an unusual relationship with the little princess of the Hyuga clan. In Jiraiya's words, it's unclear, very suspicious, enviable and unforgivable, gnashing teeth. Orochimaru naturally ignored the last two sentences. Akira Uchiha patted Ji-Lu's shoulder. She even told him about this kind of thing, which showed that she trusted him very much. It doesn't matter. After going back, let Tsunade-sensei take a look. She should have a way. Okay. By the way, what are your plans after returning to the village? Ji-Lu showed a black face. I'm going to rest for a while, or find a team to perform a mission. Ji-Lu shook her head. Akira Uchiha felt a headache. You shook your head because you don't know, or you don't know. So you think only fat otakus are autistic? No, Sanwa girl is also autistic, and her condition is more serious. You're the captain, you say it. In fact, Ji-Lu is now a Tokubetsu Jonin, so she can naturally lead a team alone. However, considering her attributes, Akira Uchiha seriously doubts her communication ability. So after thinking about it, he asked, why don't you continue to be in the same team as me? Okay, I'll go back and apply to Uncle Sandaime. Ji-Lu nodded seriously, showing a rare smile. After solving the problem, the meal naturally can't be eaten. Akira Uchiha wasn't hungry, but he was forced to eat a few mouthfuls, and now his stomach is a little bloated. So he stood up and handed the bowl to Ji-Lu, ready to go out to digest. Because of the night, the troops can't march, so they can only be stationed on this open plain. The situation is obviously different from a few days ago. Now the troops are full of a happy atmosphere to return to the village they have left for a long time. After turning a corner, Akira Uchiha saw Jiraiya squatting next to the bushes. It's just that his face is a little red, and he looks constipated. Of course, Jiraiya is not doing something unethical here, although he is indeed very uncultured. Chun, you're here? Little son Watergate saw his friend, so he hurriedly shouted. Akira Uchiha also waved his hand and walked over with a smile, at the same time looking at the scene in front of him with interest. Watergate teaching Jiraiya ninjutsu. Yes, you didn't hear wrong. It's indeed Watergate teaching Jiraiya, not Jiraiya teaching Watergate. Speaking of which, Jiraiya felt a little sad. After leaving for a few years, he didn't teach his disciple any ninjutsu, and now he came back to learn ninjutsu from his disciple. He suddenly felt that the eyes of the people around him were full of contempt. Especially Tsunade. In Tsunade's words, it doesn't matter if Watergate doesn't have him as a teacher. Thinking of this, Jiraiya even felt that the water ball in his hand was boring. Stinky brat, what are you laughing at? He stared at Akira Uchiha with a straight face. If it weren't for the fact that this ninjutsu was invented by you, I would have beaten the shit out of you. Uncle, didn't you say that you can learn it in one day? It's been 3 days. How come you haven't even completed the first step? Akira Uchiha couldn't help but laugh. Jiraiya's eyes popped out when he saw Watergate use Rasengan. It was the first time he saw this kind of ninjutsu, so he wanted to learn it. Watergate had no choice but to come and ask Akira Uchiha. Akira Uchiha, of course, has no objection. He said before that Watergate can decide who he wants to give it to and doesn't need to ask his opinion. After all, this ninjutsu was originally invented by Watergate. But who knew that Tsunade knew about it? So he laughed at Jiraiya and made a bet with him that if he mastered Rasengan in a week, he would agree to one of Jiraiya's conditions. However, 3 days have passed, and Jiraiya still hasn't made any progress, so it's strange that he can give Akira Uchiha a good look. Immortal of the 6 realms, please bless me. As long as I succeed, I will never peek at women's bathhouse again. And I will never go to a brothel again. Jiraiya couldn't help but pray. After all, this is a good opportunity to pursue Tsunade, even if it's for a lifetime of happiness. He must learn this ninjutsu. Pop! Jiraiya was so excited that he couldn't control his golden right hand that he has been training for more than 10 years. The water ball broke and splashed his face with liquid. He took a deep breath. Shikyu. Chapter 269. Shit Rasengan. Jiraiya angrily threw the water ball to the ground, but he jumped up and stomped on it. It was as if that was his most hated brother Fifen. Comfortable. Jiraiya shook his soft white hair and walked towards the tent with crab steps. Looking at his posture, he should be looking for Orochimaru for physical comfort and stimulation. Watergate, who was by the bushes, was alone in the wind. In the end, he could only helplessly smile and say, "Ahaha, sensei is always like this. Chun, don't mind him. It's okay, he will come back sooner or later." Just like the song, "Is this the most fragrant rice in the world? Or is there another fried rice more fragrant than this?" Akira Uchiha didn't think that Jiraiya could escape the law of fragrances. "By the way, Watergate, how is your Rasengan?" "It's still the same. I can only say that I can barely use it. I have to make a shadow clone in advance, but I don't have enough chakra." Watergate helplessly spread out his hands. Like most geniuses of this age, their strength is not limited by their talent, but the amount of chakra. No matter how powerful you are, without chakra, it is useless. And people like Shina Kushina, who at a young age has more chakra than most jonins, are after all, a minority. Watergate can teach Jiraiya Rasengan, which means that he has a thorough understanding of this ninjutsu. He can also use it himself, but the effect is greatly reduced. It's okay, you should be able to use it in real combat when you don't need to use the shadow clone. Akira Uchiha patted his shoulder and comforted him. In 2 years, our body will enter the stage of rapid development, and at that time, the amount of chakra will increase greatly. Chirp 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 chirp. At this time, the sound of Chidori suddenly came from afar. Akira Uchiha froze. Of course, he was familiar with this sound because he had used this ninjutsu more than once. "It should be Mikoto," Watergate guessed. "Yes, let's go and take a look." Following the sound, they didn't take long before they saw Mikoto under a boulder. At this time, the lightning in her hand had just dissipated, and from time to time, electric arcs could be seen jumping out in the air. "Watergate, when I was carrying out my mission, did you guys train very hard?" Akira Uchiha asked thoughtfully. I'm fine. After you went on a mission, there weren't many missions left for us to do. So the 3 of us have been resting. I usually start practicing Rasengan in the morning, and I can't stand it by noon. On the one hand, the chakra can't keep up, and on the other hand, the meridians in my hand will feel tearing pain. Akira Uchiha nodded and said, "Well, I told you before, there is a certain risk when practicing A-class ninjutsu, otherwise it wouldn't be that only Jonin-level ninjas are qualified to practice A-class ninjutsu. Do you know how long Mikoto practiced Chidori?" "I'm not very clear. In the camp, when I went to the training ground in the morning, she was usually there, and when I left in the evening, she was still practicing. I can't believe she has so much chakra." Minato sighed. Akira Uchiha shook his head. The Uchiha clan is not good at chakra. Although they have a lot more chakra than ordinary ninjas, they don't have a lot of chakra at the age of 11. This inventory is obviously not enough to support Mikoto for a day of practice, not to mention Chidori, who consumes a lot of chakra. Obviously, she should have used the chakra scroll that Watergate and Akira Uchiha made before. This thing can increase the amount of chakra for a chunin, which is the foundation to support her training. But it's still too hard. Watergate only practiced chakra for a morning, and he felt the pain in his hand meridians. Even if Mikoto has a lot of chakra and a thorough understanding of Chidori, without enough physical support, she won't be better than Watergate. What's more, lightning attribute chakra is the most violent of the 5 attributes. The 12-year-old Sasuke can only use Chidori twice a day. Although Mikoto has the support of the seal scroll, the focus of practice is only chakra, but she practiced for a day. Akira Uchiha didn't need to think to know what the meridians in her hand are like. That's why Akira Uchiha said that she is too hard. But what's the reason for this result? At the end of the day, it was because he brought too much pressure to them, especially Mikoto. In the past, the ninja school wasn't obvious, but after the Shinobi World War, with the rapid growth of strength, Watergate, Rope Tree, and Mikoto can no longer keep up with his pace. Now he has to be separated from the three of them when performing tasks. Of course, this is because of the lack of high-end combat power on the battlefield. But on the other hand, isn't it because the three of them are too weak? Mikoto's personality is the most gentle, and she doesn't like to fight. If it's someone else, she definitely won't care. However, in any case, she can't accept that her childhood sweetheart can't keep up with her. In the past 10 years, Mikoto has been standing behind him. If she doesn't want to become a burden, she must train as hard as possible, even if she gets hurt. Compared to being protected, she wants to be the protector. This is not so much Mikoto's meticulous mind, but it's the stubbornness of the Uchiha family's blood. Even the gentle Mikoto is the same. I'll go take a look. Under Watergate's puzzled eyes, Akira Uchiha walked towards Mikoto. Ching. Seeing the boy coming over, she showed a shallow smile. Chidori, do you know how to use it? Not really. I just succeeded for the first time. Mikoto's tone was a little excited. Akira Uchiha nodded and continued. Let me see your right hand. Hearing his serious tone, Mikoto obediently stretched out her hand. When she rolled up her sleeves, a layer of bandages wrapped inside was revealed. Akira Uchiha carefully removed it, finally revealing a thin arm. The girl's skin is very white, and the blood vessels on her wrist can be clearly seen through her skin. But the blood vessels are much more swollen than normal, like entrenched earthworms. Obviously, there is a problem with her meridians. Why are civilian ninjas weak, and why are family ninjas strong? In addition to the inheritance, the fundamental reason is that you have been taught by your family ninjas since childhood. Every time you progress, someone will tell you how to avoid detours. If you practice blindly, sometimes there will be problems. If there is no problem, it is just that you are lucky. Take Naruto for example. If he did not have a strong bloodline, when he chose to use Shadow Clone, his ending would be that his chakra was drained, and he would be the fastest protagonist to fail. There would not be so many stories after that. Of course, because he failed so quickly, you can even suspect that he is a villain, the kind that specifically goes against the protagonist Sasuke, and then doesn't survive more than 3 episodes in the anime. I'm looking at Mikoto, who was a little sad. Akira Uchiha sighed and said, "Does it hurt?" The girl nodded. "Did you go to the medical ninjas?" But they said that this level of injury can only be cured by Tsunade-sama. But at that time Tsunade-sama went to command the troops, so I planned to go back to the village first. Akira Uchiha breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Tsunade did not have hematophobia, or he would have to cure Tsunade first. If that was the case, he would be finished. His mouth release was still leveling up. How could he compare to a monster like Naruto who was born with max level? Mikoto, I'm sorry. I didn't take good care of you. No, this is not your fault. She tried her best to form a coherent sentence, but tears still fell from her eyes. She wiped her tears with both hands, but they still fell uncontrollably. Akira Uchiha wiped her tears. Let's go, I'll take you to Tsunade-sensei. Looking at this scene, the single dog Minato was once again in a mess in the wind. Have I been too arrogant recently? She actually dares to follow me. He touched his chest and felt that he was hit by 443 points of damage. Chapter 270. When she found Tsunade, she scolded Akira Uchiha. In her words, she said, "You can eat whatever you want, but how can you practice ninjutsu?" And he felt that there was something wrong with that sentence. Hey, that's not right. I'm not the one who's practicing. Why are you scolding me? Akira Uchiha wanted to complain, but when he glanced at Rope Tree's miserable state, he obediently shut his mouth. As 2 of the 3 little ones were training hard, how could Rope Tree be an exception? Unlike Watergate and Mikoto, Rope Tree's strong endurance and endless chakra meant that he could learn more things. So he went to find Tsunade early in the morning. Come on, train me hard. If I even frown, I thousand-hand Rope Tree, I'm not a man. However, after only 3 days he regretted it. Actually, there's nothing wrong with being a boy. And but why would Tsunade care about him? As the future pillar of the Thousand Hand clan, did he want to just eat and wait for death? More importantly, Tsunade wanted to deal with the trivial matters as soon as possible after the war and go on a trip. So it was necessary to improve his brother's strength as soon as possible. Unwilling to practice? No problem. Tsunade said that he had 100 ways to make Rope Tree obedient, so he casually put some medicine in his food. He wouldn't die from eating it anyway. And even if something happened, Tsunade was confident that he could save him. That was how the medical master could do whatever he wanted. My stupid brother. If you want to be free, then hate and curse, then live an ugly life. Keep training just to become stronger. Then one day when you have enough strength, you can continue to court death. Akira Uchiha was already aware of Tsunade's coldness, so for his own safety, he ignored the Rope Tree's pleading eyes and allowed him to drown in the cesspool of despair. Sensei Tsunade, this is how you should train Rope Tree. I will support you spiritually. It was impossible to hit someone when they were down, but it was still necessary to symbolically spit a few times to express his political position. By the way, how long do you think it will take for Mikoto's hand to heal? Tsunade glanced at Akira Uchiha and sneered. So what if he's cured? If I continue to train like this, sooner or later there will be problems. Instead of that, it's better to give up my ninja career. Sister. Shut up. In fact, Tsunade wasn't targeting Mikoto. Otherwise, she wouldn't have sent Mikoto away in advance and let her find a medical ninja to bandage her hand. Her words were mainly because she was annoyed with Akira Uchiha's behavior. As the captain, it was too irresponsible to teach such a dangerous ninjutsu. Of course, Tsunade didn't like Mikoto very much. Compared to Mikoto, she liked Shinakushina more. Akira Uchiha regretted it. If he knew earlier, he would have gone to Orochimaru-sensei. Although Uncle Snake didn't graduate from the medical profession, he had many years of clinical experience, especially proficient in human transformation. There were no difficult diseases that he couldn't cure. More importantly, compared to Shinakushina, Orochimaru liked Mikoto more. After all, she was his disciple. In short, two of the Sannin had a serious disagreement on this matter. Well, you can go back. Tsunade coldly snorted and waved her hand like a fly. We are still on the march. There is no condition to perform this kind of sophisticated surgery. Treat it after returning to the village. Be careful not to cause secondary injuries. Yes, I know. Akira Uchiha turned around and left without looking back. After all, just listening to the Rope Tree's wailing was creepy enough. He was afraid that if he stayed, Tsunade wouldn't be able to help but drug him. As the night passed, the army once again moved toward the Land of Fire. For several days, there were no problems. Orochimaru took the lead and walked at the front of the army. As one of the most powerful people, he needed to be on guard against unexpected events. Tsukumo, on the other hand, was at the end of the long line, serving as the rear guard. Not only that, Akira Uchiha's position at this time was also at the back of the army. In case of any situation, with his speed he could quickly rush to support. As for the three generations of Kazekage and Chiyo, who were the most important people, they were guarded by Jiraiya and Tsunade respectively. In case Sakura Shinobu attacked them, they wouldn't be taken away. In fact, it was necessary to do so. 2 days later, Sakura Shinobu, who had been missing for a long time, once again ambushed them on the road they must pass. For Sand Village, this war was inevitable, but it's not like they haven't lost before. But if they just let the enemy take away the village's Kage, they would become the biggest joke in the shinobi world. Since they can't win on the battlefield, then they can only rely on a sneak attack. And if that doesn't work, then they can only rely on self-destruction. Anyway, this batch of Sakura Shinobu didn't intend to go back alive, or rather, as a specially produced tool. Even the most basic of humanity has been erased. In this case, the wisest move was to kill the Kazekage in the cage, otherwise he would be like a flame, constantly attracting Sakura Shinobu like a moth to the flame. But this was definitely impossible, not to mention that it took so much effort to capture the Kazekage. The ransom alone was enough for Woodleaf to make a lot of money. Fortunately, the number of Sakura Shinobu was really small, and under Woodleaf's sufficient precautions in the end, It didn't cause any serious consequences. Is there any problem? After the battle, Shigeru came over and asked. Probably, the seal on the cage doesn't show any signs of loosening. Akira Uchiha lowered his head and continued to observe the seal. In the past 2 years, with the help of Mito's scrolls, his sealing technique was still passable, but this also showed that he had no talent in this area. With the help of the system, he was barely on the same level as Watergate. Was there even a need to mention the difference between the two? Just to be on the safe side, let's call Orochimaru-sensei over to take a look? Akira Uchiha stood up and said, Okay, wait here for a moment, I'll go call him over. Although Shigeru was powerful, he only had a superficial understanding of sealing techniques. This kind of theoretical knowledge was extremely complicated, so it was more reliable to ask a professional for help. After a while, Orochimaru came over alone. Shigeru didn't come back with him. Without saying anything, after nodding, Orochimaru walked over to Kazekage, who was pretending to be dead, and began to examine him. Orochimaru knew that Kazekage was awake, but he didn't want to talk to him. As for Kazekage, facing Orochimaru, who was severely brainwashed by the will of fire, he didn't want to open his eyes either. After a while, Orochimaru finally finished examining the seal on the iron cage, and carefully examined the seal on Kazekage's body. In the end, he didn't do anything. After grinning, he took Akira Uchiha and left the cage that imprisoned Kazekage. The 3 generations of Kazekage were the most valuable prisoners of war in would leave history, so of course, they received extremely special treatment. Not only was there a seal personally drawn by Orochimaru, but in addition to the handcuffs and shackles on the Kazekage's body, there were also curses to suppress chakra and restrict movement. Tsunade even gave him a lot of homemade candy. So in this period of time, Kazekage was forced to sleep. The only reason he woke up was because the explosions caused by Sakura Shinobu were too loud and too concentrated. Sensei, how's the seal? After walking for a while, Akira Uchiha couldn't help but ask. He really didn't find any problems. The 3 generations of Kazekage are indeed the strongest Kazekage. They can still use some tricks under these circumstances. Orochimaru said calmly. Then. It's fine, everything is under control. Yeah. Since Orochimaru said so, Akira Uchiha didn't ask any more questions. He didn't need to say anything, Orochimaru would tell him anyway. Right, where's Jiraiya? Speaking of which, why haven't I seen him? Orochimaru blinked his golden snake eyes and suddenly asked. It was Jiraiya's job to guard the 3 generations of Kazekage, but he couldn't find him even after looking for a long time. During the battle just now, Jiraiya Sensei suddenly used Rasengan. Akira Uchiha was speechless. Now he's going to find Tsunade Sensei. After hearing Akira Uchiha's words, Orochimaru stood in the crowd blankly, no longer as confident as before. For him, heaven might not be in front of him, but hell was definitely behind him. Chapter 271. As they got closer and closer to the land of fire, Sakura Shinobu didn't show any signs of appearing again. Akira Uchiha also gradually relaxed his tense nerves, slowly rubbing against the grain truck while basking in the sun. Occasionally, when he is bored, he will guide Watergate on some small questions about Chakra's theory. Mikoto can't use her right hand due to her injured meridians, so she quietly listened to him explain the theory. Although Akira Uchiha didn't tell Mikoto about the Chidori Ryu's theory, she knew that the theory of Chakra's transformation must be used to make Chidori's arm, and even the whole body. Naoki was lying on the ground half dead, as if he was already a useless dog. When he thought about how he had to find Tsunade at night, he even had the heart to die. As for Ji Lu, she was sitting quietly on the side, reading the scroll about Gentle Fist. In fact, after getting along with her, she wasn't as extreme as she was when she was a child, and her temper was also good. If you communicate with her, you can get a good response. After a long time of this kind of life, Akira Uchiha stood up and stretched his body, looking at the surrounding scenery. He suddenly smiled and said, "We are about to enter the border of the land of fire." Rope Tree stood on tiptoe and looked forward, but he didn't see anything. So he turned his head and asked, "How do you know? Does the Sharingan have a detection function?" Akira Uchiha shook his head and said, "The terrain of the land of Kawanaji is hilly except for the desert. Now the surrounding greenery has obviously increased, and the air is a lot moist, so I guess we are about to reach the land of fire." These are the geography courses of the ninja school. Don't you listen to them? Well, I was busy learning taijutsu and ninjutsu at the time, so I didn't pay attention to these things. Rope Tree smiled awkwardly. Theory classes have always been his weakness. If it weren't for his excellent results in practical classes, he would be at the bottom of the class. Me too. Watergate also nodded. His theory classes were excellent, but in order to catch up with Akira Uchiha, he spent all his free time on training. How could he have the time to participate in such a boring elective course? Akira Uchiha was speechless. Watergate was such an excellent and obedient child in the manga. It had only been a few years, but he had been led astray by the rope tree, the walking root of all evil. What a disaster. Akira Uchiha was about to continue lying down when he suddenly thought of something. Then, with a mysterious expression, he said, "This knowledge was useless in the past, but it is still somewhat useful now." Well, what do you mean? Everyone's spirits were lifted. Your merits should be enough to apply for Chunin, right? Yes. Shinji nodded, but then he said strangely, "The problem is that the station suddenly stopped accepting the evaluation of Chunin." I don't know if it's true, but I have to go to Konoha to confirm it. I asked my sister, but she didn't say anything. She said I'll know when we go back. As with Leaf's all-knowing student, Rope Tree was also very puzzled. Could it be? Watergate already had a guess. Akira Uchiha smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Yes, the village deliberately closed it. Now that the war is over, Woodleaf is the winner, so they should enjoy the fruits of victory. Let's not talk about the other villages' reparations. The most important thing is that we need a Chunin exam to show Woodleaf's strength to all potential employers. And it's the kind of large-scale Chunin exam that is jointly held by several villages. In terms of Chunin exam, it was an important occasion for large countries to observe their national strength. However, after 3 years of war, the various villages had more or less understood each other's strength. But they couldn't understand it. They had to let those rich employers understand it. Woodleaf was powerful, and a village defeated 2 of the 5 major countries, but who knew how much strength they had left? So to put it bluntly, this was the time to show off the village's strength and get more missions. The more missions you got, the faster your economy would recover after the war, and then you would have a stronger position in the next war. After all, there were only so many missions. If you had more missions, the other villages would have fewer, and the recovery would be slower. Moreover, a large-scale Chunin exam like this would attract a lot of tourists to Woodleaf, which was good for the village's depressed economy. This was similar to the Olympics in his previous life. Why did so many countries want to hold it? Wasn't it because it could make money and stimulate the economy of the country? As for why you didn't make money in the end, but others made money, who could blame? Even if Woodleaf held the worst Chunin exam in history, they couldn't just lie down and make money. In short, for this exam, the village will inevitably suspend the ninjas' applications. These quasi-Chunin, who just came back from the battlefield, were the best in terms of strength and experience. After all, most of the less outstanding ones died on the battlefield. Oh no, my theory class is not very good. Rope Tree suddenly thought of something. Akira Uchiha chuckled but didn't say anything. This kind of theory exam was originally meant to rely on the ninja's investigative ability. Let alone Rope Tree, there were some questions that normal people couldn't answer. But he couldn't point it out, otherwise it would be boring. Generally, Jonin wouldn't tell Genin. Chun, is there a key point? Draw a picture for me. Rope Tree showed a hopeful look and shook Akira Uchiha's shoulder. Akira Uchiha smiled and asked, "Do you know what is bigger than the shinobi world?" Rope Tree shook his head with a confused look. The scope of the exam. Perhaps because the air was filled with Rope Tree's sadness, when they were about to enter the land of fire, the sky began to become gloomy. The torrential rain fell straight down, and the sound of wheels hitting the ground could be heard all around. accompanied by the sound of rain hitting the puddles and the raindrops sliding down the carriage. It sounded like a long-winded conversation, but also like a clumsy instrument playing. The rhythm was wrong. Kazekage stuck out his tongue and licked the raindrops and looked down, only to see that the seal on the cage didn't have the slightest trace of wetness. The raindrops fell on the cage and immediately slid down to the ground again. After a while, he squinted his eyes and observed the ninjas of Woodleaf who were watching him. At the same time, he secretly touched the fine seals in the cage with his slightly mobile hand, and used his chakra to analyze them little by little. As the Kage of the village, he knew a little bit about everything, not to mention that Shikaku's chakra originally had the power of seals. He studied Shikaku and obtained magnet release, so naturally, he also had a deep understanding in this area. Rain a little bit heavier. 3 generations of Kazekage sat quietly in the cage that was specially made for him, and kept praying. If he reached Woodleaf, naturally he wouldn't have a chance, but as long as the rain is a little bit heavier, it will continue to delay the speed of the entire army, and he will have hope to complete his prison break plan and achieve a ninja version of Shawshank's redemption. A strong ninja can only save himself. A great ninja can save others. 3 generations of Kazekage didn't want to be a great ninja anymore. He just wanted to be strong. Chapter 272. Jiraiya had fallen out of love. However, Akira Uchiha felt that this was inaccurate. After all, how could a person who had never been in love say that he had fallen out of love? At most, it could be said that the spare tire had failed to become the main tire, and was ruthlessly strangled in the cesspool. However, Jiraiya insisted that he and Tsunade had been in love for an hour before they broke up peacefully. However, according to the insider rope tree, this number was greatly exaggerated, and was at least 60 times exaggerated. A man will only become stronger after being dumped. A man who doesn't have the tolerance to joke about this is incompetent. Jiraiya stood up and looked at the dusk that was about to fall. He said the most profound sentence in his life. Moreover, happiness is not something that a man should pursue. His eyes were as deep as the ocean, which made Orochimaru, who was standing next to him, stunned. But the next second, ahaha, I've decided to write this story in my novel. Jiraiya, who had a look of realization, suddenly became playful again. Brother Jiraiya, are you really okay? Rope Tree felt a little guilty. After all, he had tidied up Jiraiya to confess. He didn't expect that he would fail again. It's not your fault. It's all your sister's fault. Jiraiya patted Rope Tree's head. I only know that Tsunade is shameless, but I didn't expect her to be so shameless. She promised to be in love with me, but she dumped me after an hour. Jiraiya was so angry. He was so excited that he didn't even have time to hold her hand before the first love of his life ended in a hurry. I'm so stupid. Really, I could have done a lot of things. Akira Uchiha wanted to ridicule Jiraiya, but under his fierce gaze he obediently shut his mouth. What's wrong, stinky brat? You seem to have something to say? Jiraiya gave Akira Uchiha a death stare. His expression was as if he was going to stuff an explosive charm into Akira Uchiha's pants. Akira Uchiha, who wanted to seek outside help, looked at Orochimaru. However, Uncle Snake was holding back the smile on his face. He seemed to still be immersed in the good news that Jiraiya had been dumped. Helplessly, he could only bite the bullet and explain bitterly. No. I just thought of a good way to help you win back Tsunade-sensei. What's such a good thing? Why didn't you say so earlier? Jiraiya excitedly grabbed Akira Uchiha's little hand, as if he wasn't the one who had just exclaimed, men need to be strong. Just like this. Take a cup and walk in front of Tsunade-sensei and smash it on the ground. See if you can subdue her. If you can subdue him, your relationship with him will be restored. What if you can't? Just take the opportunity to kneel on the glass shards and be done with it. You're not tricking me again, are you? Jiraiya looked at Akira Uchiha with a suspicious gaze. He suddenly thought of a bad memory. A few years ago, it was this brat who had tricked him and caused him to have 3 of his ribs broken by Tsunade. Anyway, listen to me. Akira Uchiha glanced at the rope tree and water gate. Look at the group of single dogs around you. What do they know? Don't talk about their hands. They'll even blush when they talk to girls. That seems to make sense. Jiraiya rubbed his chin and said, "All right, I'll give it a try tomorrow." After getting the method, Jiraiya left the others behind and walked excitedly towards his tent. He had to sleep well tonight. At 5 o'clock the next morning, Akira Uchiha, who had just woken up, walked out of the carriage and patted Watergate on the shoulder. "Watergate, go to sleep. I'll wake you up when the army leaves." Although there are thousands of ninjas here, after all they are in the wilderness, so the necessary vigilance is still there. Fortunately, there are 5 people in Akira Uchiha's group, and each of them will be on guard for a while. They can still sleep well for the night. "What are you doing?" Looking at Watergate, who was packing up the ninja bag, Akira Uchiha asked in confusion. "I have nothing to do, so I'm preparing bandages for Jiraiya, sensei. I have a feeling that he will need it today." Watergate opened his mouth and jinxed it. Akira Uchiha smiled and shook his head. "Watergate, can't you have some common sense? What's the use of bandages? You need glue so that the portrait can be fixed." "Ha ha ha ha, okay, go to sleep. Today is the day we will cross the border of the fire country. We will definitely be busy then. Woodleaf should be there to help us. There won't be any problems, right?" "I'm not sure about this. Orochimaru, sensei didn't tell me about this, but prepare for the battle." "Okay, I know." Watergate nodded and walked toward the carriage. After looking around and finding nothing unusual, Akira Uchiha walked toward the carriage where Mikoto and Ji-Lu were. After opening the curtains, he found that the 2 girls were still asleep, but the coats that covered their bodies had been kicked off. "They can't even sleep well." After muttering, he picked up the coat and covered them again. At this time Ji-Lu, who was more vigilant, suddenly opened his eyes. "Don't misunderstand." Akira Uchiha raised his hand awkwardly, indicating that he didn't do anything. Ji-Lu didn't speak, he just closed his eyes and fell asleep again. After waiting for a while, he heard no movement around him and opened his eyes again. Through the gap of the curtain, he could see the youth's figure in the distance. Looking at Mikoto and touching his hot face, Ji-Lu lay down again. As for whether he can fall asleep or not, who knows? At 7 o'clock, the whole team began their journey again. They will return to the fire country today. This is something that every ninja knows. There may be a small-scale battle breaking out. At that time, you should pay attention a little. I may not be able to take care of you. Watergate and Rope Tree, the safety of the team is in your hands. We are almost at the border of the fire country. Is there still a possibility of a battle? Rope Tree asked doubtfully. Yes, there is still a big problem that hasn't been solved yet. Regarding the 3 generations of Kazekage, Akira Uchiha was only hinted by Orochimaru, so he can't be too sure, so he can only give his team members a heads up in advance. When the ninja army returned from the battlefield of the land of Kawa smoothly crossed the border and returned to the fire country, the whole team burst into cheers. But Orochimaru, who was walking at the front of the team, didn't look happy at all. At this time, he already knew the news sent back by the scout ninja in front. Woodleaf's rescue team has arrived. According to the previous routine, the purpose of the rescue team is not to protect the army. After all, thousands of ninjas are here, and they don't need anyone to protect them. These people are just representing the identity of Naruto, coming to personally greet the army to show respect to the hero. But what is a little eye-catching is that this time there are a lot of ninjas, and some of them are mixed. In addition to some Umbu ninjas, there are more ninjas led by the Uchiha clan. Of course, not all of them. The rest of the ninjas are unwilling to be left out. They came really fast. Orochimaru smiled ambiguously. These people naturally came to protect the 3 generations of Kazekage to ensure that he is smoothly escorted back to the village. After all, as the biggest fruit of this war, as long as he is escorted back, it will be a great achievement. There are so many flies. Unlike Orochimaru, Jiraiya didn't speak, but looked at these ninjas with a complicated look. Chapter 273. If there's anyone who is the most embarrassed now, it's undoubtedly Akira Uchiha and Mikoto. Not only do they have to bear the strange eyes of the surrounding ninjas, but they also have to watch the Uchiha's stupid performance. At this moment, Akira Uchiha even felt that the red collar on his chest, the round fan behind his back was even more colorful. He was somewhat fortunate. Fortunately, he had the Jonin vest as a cover, otherwise he would have to drill into the ground. But Akira Uchiha was still a little uncomfortable. Rope Tree, is there something on my face? Rope Tree smacked his lips and said, No, I just want to ask you a question. Is the one in the front your clan leader Uchiha's henchman? My eyes are not very good, help me take a look. He pointed to the person who was talking to Orochimaru at the front, while emphasizing the word Uchiha. Akira Uchiha said angrily, He's not my henchman, how would I know? You dead dwarf, don't you dare look at me again. Ouch, you dare to jump up and hit my knee. Rope Tree's face turned red, and he hurriedly explained to the surrounding people. Don't listen to his nonsense, I'm shorter than him by a centimeter. While the two were arguing, the ninja at the front began to express his condolences. Congratulations to Orochimaru-sama, congratulations to Jiraiya-sama. The ninja with the Umbu's fox mask bowed first, and then continued. By the order of Naruto-sama, we Umbu and some ninjas in the village will be waiting at the border of the Land of Fire. Of course, we are also responsible for the safety of the captives brought back from the Land of Wind. Orochimaru sneered. There are thousands of ninjas here. Can't they take care of the 3 generations of Kazekage? If they want to be responsible, they should have come from the Land of River, but now they are in the Land of Fire. Their table manners are too ugly. Where is the sealed decree of Lord Naruto? Here. Since they want to get a piece of the pie, how can they not be prepared? Soon, the leader of the Umbu took out a letter of appointment with Naruto's signature. After Orochimaru took it, he just glanced at it a little. As for what the ninja force looks like, Naruto already told him in detail in the intelligence exchange. As mentioned before, Mito Monitis, who was forcefully promoted to the position of leader, couldn't control Root at all. In other words, Naruto 3 was just putting on an act. It didn't take long for Danzo to regain his position. At the same time, the Uchiha clan who had blocked the trade between the Sand Village and the merchants also returned. No matter how powerful the tiger in the cage is, its lethality will be reduced. This sentence is very suitable for the Uchiha clan. So unfortunately, they didn't get much advantage from Sakura Shinobu. So Uchiha clan, who was eager to have a say in the matter, set their eyes on this task, or Danzo suggested that they get a piece of the pie. It may be ironic, but now is actually the honeymoon period between Danzo and the Uchiha clan. This can be seen from the fact that Uchiha clan temporarily gave the position of the guard to Danzo. But how to say, there are no eternal friends, and there are no eternal enemies. As long as the benefits are enough, even Danzo will occasionally help a group of Uchiha clan. Anyway, everyone takes what they want. By the way, are you really Naruto Umbu, and not some random people? As if he was joking, Orochimaru asked with a hoarse voice. Umbu has always been under the jurisdiction of Naruto-sama. How can there be any other people? You must be joking. The leader of the Umbu ninja was wearing a mask, so his expression couldn't be seen, but he still said with a chuckle. There's no problem in saying that. Root also belongs to the Umbu in name, but what made Orochimaru surprised is that the members of Root are so high level now, and they even know how to fake smile. During the conversation between the two, the Jonin who was closer to them already understood what's going on. It's nothing more than some ninjas in the village who don't want to be left out, and want to take a spoonful of the fruit of victory that belongs to them. Although they are very unhappy, they are still ninjas of the same village, and they have Naruto's order, so it's impossible for them to fight. And this kind of struggle itself is a matter of the upper level of the Woodleaf clan. As the sword in the hand of the village, they are not qualified to care about this kind of thing. However, this kind of attitude of wanting to fight before even returning to the village really makes these ninjas who are fighting on the battlefield feel bitterly disappointed. The problem is that this kind of shameful thing is completely pushed away by the leader of the Umbu. After all, the Umbu of Woodleaf is indeed directly under the jurisdiction of Naruto, but only those who have a deeper understanding of the Umbu are aware of the existence of Root. But this doesn't prevent them from glaring at the Umbu, including the Uchiha ninjas. Then the captives, including the 3 generations of Kazekage, will be handed over to us? Yes. Orochimaru just chuckled and simply agreed. We are all ninjas of wood leaf, we understand each other. Yes, it's great that Orochimaru-sama can be so reasonable. Since this is the case, and the border of the Land of Fire is not safe, it will take about 5 days to return to wood leaf, then let's hurry up. The Umbu ninja was prepared to be embarrassed, but he didn't expect it to be so simple that it gave him an illusion that it was not so easy to refuse a card in the barber shop. And at this time, Jiraiya, who was standing behind, didn't say a word. He already understood why Orochimaru made that plan. From his standpoint, of course, he didn't want his friend to do such a thing that would harm the ninjas of the village. But before that, there was a bigger premise. He, Jiraiya, was also the disciple of Sandaime Naruto. Konoha's upper echelons are divided into factions. In addition to the Sandaime, who is the highest on the surface, there are not only the Umbu, but also the elders of Konoha, and various large and small shinobi clans. That's why it's said that fighting with people is fun. Woodleaf's biggest enemy is not outside the village, but inside the village. The other 4 countries are just rotten fish and shrimp. Jiraiya can raise objections, but he can't stop it. As Orochimaru said, even Sandaime Naruto acquiesced to this plan. What can he do? Persuade these ninjas to go back? He's not that naive. It's just that he's a little tired. Suddenly, Jiraiya missed the life in the Land of Rain. Maybe it's time to go on a trip. Just when Jiraiya was still hesitating, the Umbu leader has already ordered most of the Uchiha ninjas and Umbu to gather in the Kazekage prison, and the rest to gather in the puppet master Chiyo. As the troops began to move forward, the root ninjas at the front of the team felt a little relaxed. As long as they join the team, they will have a share of the credit, even if it's only a little bit. It's enough for their leader to win more benefits in the game with Naruto. As for the Uchiha, they may also get a lot of benefits, but they will undoubtedly be hated by more ninjas. After all, they don't wear masks. Who can say whether it's a gain or a loss? With the acceleration of the speed, 2 days later, the whole team was less than half of the distance to Woodleaf. Just when everyone began to look forward to the scene of the village again, the cage engraved with fine seals lit up with a faint light. The light was so weak that even the nearest Uchiha ninja didn't notice it. Immediately afterward, a corner of the seal written on a special scroll that was fixed outside the lock quietly lifted. It took a total of nearly 4 days. The Kazekage locked in the cage, relying on his right hand that could only move, little by little, to break the seal. Finally, he completed his redemption, and was about to successfully escape from prison. At the moment when the seal was broken, the 3 generations of Kazekage was a little excited. The chakra in his body began to increase. After waiting silently for a while, the obscure feeling slowly disappeared. Now he felt very good, except that the chakra was less. There was no difference from before. But what should he do next? Is he going to forgive Konoha's ninjas like his old father? The 3 generations of Kazekage shook his head. Forgiving is impossible. He already felt that his sword was thirsty. Chapter 274. Magnet Release. As the most precious treasure left by the second Kazekage to the Sand Village, was perfectly inherited by the 3 generations of Kazekage. It was precisely because of this ability that he was able to suppress many ninjas and ascend to the position of the Kazekage. As the second generation of Magneto, he never worried about not having a weapon to use. While no one was paying attention, he used his special chakra to slightly touch the cage, and the iron shavings naturally fell off and quietly drilled into the wet ground under the wheels. This may be a little troublesome, but it can't be helped. After he was captured, all the iron sand hidden on his body was found. If he didn't have magnet release, perhaps he would only have the strength of an elite jonin. In this situation where he was surrounded, let alone escape, he estimated that at most, he would be dead. Fortunately, there was still plenty of time. With this idea, he once again separated a part of chakra, decomposing more iron sand from the cage, and mixing it into the ground. As long as he explored deep enough, he would be able to find enough minerals, and these minerals usually contain a small amount of iron. Soon, The iron sand that drilled into the ground gave him a subtle response. About 200 meters underground. There was enough iron for him to explore. And now the only problem is that the amount of chakra he has is only about the amount of elite Jonin. This is naturally much less than when he was at his peak, but because he was hungry for a few days, he could only refine so much chakra. Hiss. Big White, who was originally hiding on Akira Uchiha's body to avoid the heat, came out at this time and roared twice. If a battle breaks out, quickly take your team members away from the food transport area. Don't participate in the battle. Go to the rear of the team to meet with Shigeru. It was Orochimaru who told him to take Big White with him, so it was naturally Orochimaru who sent the message at this time. Are they going to make a move? Looking up at the 3 generations of Kazekage, Akira Uchiha didn't find anything unusual. After another 20 minutes, a low explosion finally came from the Kazekage cage in the middle of the team. When all the wood leaf ninjas looked towards the center with stunned eyes, the iron sand suddenly jumped up like a long dragon and smashed towards the nearest Umbu team. Retreat. While everyone was still surprised by such an attack, Uchiha-chun had already begun to issue orders, and at the same time, retreated to the end of the battlefield. Coupled with the information sent back by Orochimaru, coupled with the explosion in front of him, he has roughly guessed what kind of plan Orochi has made. It was just that. This was too daring. Since ninjas from the same village can't fight each other, nor can they kill each other in the form of missions, Orochimaru directly used the hands of the 3 generations of Kazekage. Even if it didn't achieve the effect he wanted, it didn't matter. These people have to bear the responsibility for not taking care of them properly. After all, they were completely handed over to them. Now that something like this happened, how could they say it wasn't their fault? Otherwise, why didn't they have any problems after guarding them for a few days? Prepare for battle. We must not let the Kazekage escape. Orochimaru, who was already prepared, gave the order to the Uchiha clan and the root captain the moment the explosion sounded. Well, in the name of the battlefield commander. Damn it. How could this happen? The Uchiha clan's captain angrily said. However, Orochimaru didn't even look at him. The root captain on the side waved his hand and said, "Yes, Orochimaru-sama." From his tone, one couldn't tell whether he was happy or angry. Although he was also very puzzled, now wasn't the time to shirk responsibility. To put it bluntly, if the 3 generations of Kazekage really escaped, he could only apologize by cutting his own stomach. The most important thing now was to take down the 3 generations of Kazekage cleanly. This way there was still a chance to turn things around. Otherwise, Danzo wouldn't be able to protect him. He didn't believe that the 3 generations of Kazekage, who had been locked up for a few days, could still fight, especially under the siege of so many ninjas. I don't believe in ghosts. But just in case, he still asked, Root and the Uchiha clan's people aren't enough, may I know if Orochimaru-sama? No problem, I'll go gather the Jonin now. You can go to the 3 generations of Kazekage and wait there. Orochimaru said straightforwardly, and at the same time, he walked back without looking back. He didn't know how long it would take to gather them. After all, there were so many ninjas. Even if he called them, they might not be able to rush over immediately. In order to ensure the safety of his subordinates, Orochimaru had to personally look for them. As for whether the 3 generations of Kazekage really ran away or not, Jiraiya should have already set up the outer barrier. If he could let the cooked duck escape, then he didn't need to be a commander anymore. He might as well go home and raise pigs. In short, let these people waste their energy for a while. Using the Kazekage's sword to cut off some of the people who didn't belong to Naruto's side, and then use this incident to punish a group of people. This was the battle plan that Orochimaru and Naruto established after several exchanges of information. Even if the Sand Village didn't attack in the country of River, he would find a way to open the cage and release this fierce tiger. Insidious? Orochimaru didn't deny this at all, but in the end, these people were too greedy. If they didn't reach out, this wouldn't have happened. Looking at the current situation, his sensei was still the stronger one. This time, since Naruto made concessions to Danzo and Uchiha, then similarly, the other party must have paid a price. But looking at the current result, After eating and taking, Naruto didn't even need to give out the battle points that he exchanged for. Not only that, but he also continued to harvest a wave of benefits. The most important thing is that he still maintained his righteous image. Orochimaru had to admit that the older the ginger, the spicier the spicier. Sure enough, in this world, only old cunning people can eat and drink. Compared to Orochimaru and his sensei, Shigeru was much more straightforward. Seeing Kazekage escape, as the strongest person, he had no reason to not make a move. But at this time, Akira Uchiha, who retreated to this place, stretched out his hand and grabbed his clothes. When White Fang looked at him with a puzzled look, Akira Uchiha shook his head and said, "Now is not the time to make a move." The reason why Orochimaru used the Snake Clan's psychic ability to send a message to Akira Uchiha was to prevent Shigeru from rushing out at this time, and then cut Kazekage to the ground with a few slashes. If that happened, all the previous efforts would be in vain. After all, Woodleaf didn't have the glorious tradition of treating prisoners of war well. Kazekage hadn't eaten anything for a few days, and Tsunade had been adding sugar beans to his water. Shigeru already knew the fighting style of the 3 generations of Kazekage, and the Kazekage's condition was very bad. Maybe he could break through the defense of the Iron Sand Shield, and really cut down Kazekage with a few slashes. Then Jiraiya wrote the story of cutting down Kazekage with warm wine in his novel. And so in order to prevent this kind of thing from happening, Akira Uchiha persuaded Shigeru. At the same time, without the suppression of several major forces, the 3 generations of Kazekage showed amazing fighting strength against the siege of Mini-Umbu and Uchiha Jonin. The Iron Sand Shield was the same as a tortoise shell. Whether it was genjutsu, or ninjutsu, it was extremely difficult to break this kind of defense. Although his chakra was only about the level of a Jonin, but in the face of a group of people he still firmly had the upper hand. Your uncle will always be your uncle. Do you think that just because I've become weak, I can be bullied by any cat or dog? No way. If it wasn't for escaping, who knows how many Umbu and Uchiha ninjas would have been killed by him. But now he couldn't. He just found the abnormality in his body, so he had to find an opportunity to break through the defense line. But why were there so many ninjas as he looked around? His trypophobia was acting up. The 3 generations of Kazekage sighed. If he was at his peak, he would have shouted the slogan, "You are surrounded," to this group of people. Thinking of this, he gave the ninja in front of him a death stare. His expression was as if he wanted to tear him in half. Chapter 275. If there was anyone who regretted it the most, it would undoubtedly be the route captain. Originally, he thought it was a good job with no risk and no effort. At most, he would be looked down upon, and it would be over after a while. Therefore, among the people he brought, there were only a few Tokubetsu Jonin and Jonin. Except for himself, who was an elite Jonin, there were no particularly outstanding experts. At this point, the Uchiha Patriarch was also thinking the same thing. Therefore, it led to such an awkward situation. The 3 generations of Kazekage alone blocked the attack of more than 20 Woodleaf ninjas, and he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. This was truly a matter that made people feel ashamed. Seeing that another one of his subordinates died, the route captain's heart was bleeding. He couldn't wait to rush up and kill the 3 generations of Kazekage himself. But in the next second, he chose to restrain himself and took a few steps back. Wait a minute. My husband, where's the support? Why haven't I seen him yet? If Orochimaru knew what he was thinking, he would definitely laugh at him. It was impossible for him to provide support, not in this lifetime. He could only move a small stool and watch from afar to barely make a living. At this time, the 3 generations of Kazekage in the center of the battle gradually felt that something was wrong. He didn't see any of the 4 main forces that caught him before, only a few small fries were hovering in front of him. So after letting a few Uchiha ninjas get close to him, he completed the hand seals in an instant. No matter how many chakra there were, he had to kill these ninjas first. Since there was a trap, he could only drag a few of them down with him. This would be the Kazekage's revenge for the dead sand ninjas. So in the spirit of Akyu, he directly used his ultimate move. Magnetic release, Iron Sand Realm. Countless shurikens on the ground flew up to the sky, together with a huge amount of iron sand, forming a huge dark cloud. Soon, iron sand needles were shot out like a storm, wrapping all the woodleaf ninjas in the field. Earth escape, combined earth formation wall. Orochimaru, who was already prepared, immediately ordered the woodleaf ninjas to work together to create a large-scale mixed earth release. Although the quality was uneven, it could more or less resist the Kazekage's Iron Sand World technique. And now, they were besieging the base of the Kazekage and the Uchiha ninjas. The moment they wanted to retreat and prepare to defend, the flowing iron sand on the ground had already tightly bound their feet. 10,000 snake formation. In the next second, Orochimaru, who was standing in the crowd, finally released his first ninjutsu. As the smoke dissipated, countless snakes crawled out of the ground and covered the ninjas trapped in the iron sand, blocking the piercing iron sand. Previously, he had stood aside and watched only to teach the other party a lesson. Now that he had achieved his goal, and enough people had died. However, he could not allow the reinforcements to be completely wiped out. It was one thing to borrow a knife to kill someone, but it was another thing to leave someone in the lurch. Why does it feel like it's the same thing? And forget it, who cares? Although Orochimaru was not afraid of going back and arguing, it was still troublesome. Most importantly, he didn't want to completely fall out with Danzo. After all, Danzo sensibly gave him a lot of precious materials, and he was still looking forward to the next time. Anyway, it would be a waste if he didn't want such good things. Orochimaru believed that Danzo would understand his good intentions, and wouldn't fall out with him over a few pieces of trash. After all, their positions were one thing, and their personal relationship was another. This kind of attack continued for another 10 seconds, and then the rain-like attacks gradually disappeared. Akira Uchiha, who was hiding behind the earth release, once again received information from Orochimaru. Since he received the order, he didn't hesitate. He patted White Fang's shoulder, and then when thin lightning wrapped around his legs, he rushed like a shadow toward the Sandaime-sama Kazekage, who had just finished releasing his ultimate move. It's over? The overwhelming momentum of the Iron Sand World technique still lingered in the hearts of the other Woodleaf ninjas. When they came out of the earth release, they saw Akira Uchiha and Hatsuki Shigeru sticking to the Kazekage's body. One in front and one in the back, one in the top and one in the bottom. Although the posture was a bit indecent, it did indeed control the Kazekage. Thanks to the previous battle, the 3 generations of Kazekage didn't have much chakra left after releasing their ultimate move. Akira Uchiha's genjutsu only took a moment to control him, otherwise, this battle wouldn't have been so easy. It's not a vital point. Akira Uchiha shook off the blood on his kunai and smiled at Shigeru. Me neither. Shigeru also smiled, and after showing his white fang, he put it back into the Kazekage's abdomen. Maybe it wasn't a moment ago, but now it's hard to say. However, Akira Uchiha thought about it. Since Tsunade is here, he won't let the 3 generations of Kazekage die. Look. Is that Akira Uchiha? Well, I think it's Kagami's son. Looking at the young man in front of them wearing a Jonin vest, the Uchiha people who were still alive couldn't believe it. Is this really the famous genius of the clan? If it wasn't for the Uchiha cloak he was wearing, they probably wouldn't believe it. The 3 generations of Kazekage were defeated by so many ninjas, but he defeated them all by himself? Shigeru. Did you miss something? In short, although the village doesn't need to go to the battlefield, the town security still know the name of Woodleaf Reiko. After all, the village has been promoting him. They originally had some doubts, but after seeing Akira Uchiha's strength, the last bit of doubt disappeared and turned into ecstasy. If there is such a genius in the clan, then the 5th and 6th generation of Naruto can at least fight for one, right? Of course, this is the thought of ordinary Uchiha ninjas. This time, they didn't bring many elite jonins. Most of them are just special jonins who are not very strong. Although they have status, they can't be considered as the senior members of the clan. As a senior member, Uchiha Han's face was a little dignified. In the past, it was he who went to find Akira Uchiha and brought him to the clan leader. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, the child who could be crushed with one hand would grow to this point. The clan leader sent him this time. In addition to this mission, another reason was to observe Akira Uchiha's strength and see if it is as exaggerated as the rumors in the village say. Now that he had finally seen it, his spirit was shaken the moment he made a move. Of course, Akira Uchiha heard the discussion behind him. These days he intentionally or unintentionally avoided the clansmen, but now no matter what he has to go forward and say hello. So after saying goodbye to Shigeru, he turned around and walked back through the crowd. Han-senpai, long time no see. Well, it's been a long time indeed. Uchiha Han wrung out a fake smile that was uglier than bitter. You are also a jonin now, don't call me senpai. How can that be? Senpai will always be senpai. Even if I become a jonin, it will not change. Akira Uchiha showed a row of teeth, gentle like the boy next door. Well, the clansmen should have suffered a lot of injuries. I won't bother you to take them for treatment. I will go back first. Well, go ahead. Akira Uchiha turned his head and nodded to the clansmen not far away. They didn't get close. On the one hand, they were afraid of Uchiha Han, and on the other hand, they were afraid of Akira Uchiha. Fear of the strong. This is an immutable truth, especially in the Uchiha clan. However, Akira Uchiha's gentle smile before he left was enough to make these special jonins feel flattered. Wow, so powerful and so polite. As expected of our Uchiha clan's young man. That kind of humble and friendly character flows in his blood. Yes. Speaking of which, my son is in the same year as him. Really, but why do I remember that your son is already 16 years old? Can't he stay in the 4th year? Chapter 276. When Akira Uchiha found Orochimaru, he was resealing the unconscious Kazekage in the iron cage. It was like dealing with a beast. Seeing the once powerful 3 generations of Kazekage fall into such a state, Akira Uchiha couldn't help but sigh. In this ninja world, who doesn't work hard to live? Small people have their own way of living, big people have their own way of living, but in the face of war and death, no one is special. Even Hagoromo Sannin is no exception. Compared to the life and death of others, he cares more about the people he cherishes. Only on this basis, if he has the ability, will he consider others. But this order can't be reversed. Although Akira Uchiha is not a refined egoist, he is not a saint either. If you ask him to sacrifice his family like Watergate, he will never do it. Of course, he will not allow something like the Kyubi incident to happen. What's wrong? Did you have an unpleasant encounter with your people? Orochimaru, who was sitting on the ground and redrawing the seal, looked up and asked. After being together for several years, he knew some of his disciples' emotional changes like the back of his hand. No. It's just that seeing the 3 generations of Kazekage like this, I'm a little emotional. Orochimaru nodded and said, It's normal, you are still young. When you reach my age, you won't have any emotional fluctuations. Why? I'm numb. Akira Uchiha was stunned, but he could only remain silent. Do you feel that this state is scary? Orochimaru chuckled. I graduated from the ninja school at the age of 6. Anyone who kills people for 16 years will become numb. Akira Uchiha subconsciously looked at his pale hand, but he could only remain silent again. After a while he reluctantly asked, Why did you graduate so early? I remember the history of the ninja school said that you graduated at the age of 8. Now you graduate at the age of 10. How many genin are 10 years old on the battlefield this year? Akira Uchiha nodded. He forgot about the First Ninja World War. Orochimaru, who was still drawing the seal, also stopped his work and then sat on the ground casually. At that time, the war had been going on for several years. Woodleaf was seriously lacking ninjas, and the degree of tragedy was much worse than this war. As a witness of history, he showed a look of reminiscence. At that time, Woodleaf was suffering from internal and external aggression. After the death of the first Naruto the 4 major countries began to provoke war, but even that, the second Naruto was killed in an ambush a few years later. It was because of this that Konoha almost fell apart. As the designated successor, the third Naruto couldn't suppress the major families because he was too young, especially the Uchiha clan. Orochimaru glanced at Akira Uchiha and continued. The history books of the ninja school have made a lot of deletions and beautification of this history, and what you are learning now is the emasculated version. For example, the third Naruto didn't inherit the position of Naruto at the beginning, but a few years after the death of the second Naruto. He stood up and looked at the sun in the sky and said, "At that time, the death of the second Naruto and the turmoil in Wood Leaf brought a great impact to me when I was young. It wasn't until then that I understood that the strong second Naruto could also be killed, and that the leader of the 5 major countries, Wood Leaf, was in danger of being destroyed at any time. At that time I was thinking about 2 questions. Why do people fight, and why do people die? It wasn't until many years later, when I experienced many things, that I gradually understood that the original reason for fighting was desire. And people die because..." Orochimaru stood up and looked up at the sky. Only the clouds in the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars in the sky. The life of the body is too short, too impermanent. When Orochimaru finished redrawing the seal for the 3 generations of Kazekage, the 2 got up and began to walk toward the main group. When they passed by a rest area, they met Shigeru, and after greeting him, they continued to walk forward. "Shigeru is really a pure ninja." Orochimaru said so with emotion. He didn't tell Shigeru about this plan at all, otherwise he wouldn't have asked Akira Uchiha to tell Shigeru not to do it in advance. From the beginning of the exchange of information with Naruto to the release of the Kazekage, Orochimaru always had a scale in his heart, and he knew better than anyone what could and should be done. He knew Wood Leaf's dark side, but there was also light in his heart, at least for now. This was also the reason why the third Naruto wanted Orochimaru to succeed as the fourth Naruto. In this aspect alone, Orochimaru was much more intelligent than Jiraiya and Shigeru. But who could guarantee that Orochimaru, who had seen too much darkness, wouldn't throw himself into the dark side? The more intelligent a person was, the more paranoid they would be, because they were also people with a strong sense of self. Just as Akira Uchiha was thinking about these things, Orochimaru, who was walking in front of him, suddenly asked, "Your friend is called Windstorm Watergate, right? He's Jiraiya's stupid disciple." Akira Uchiha was a bit speechless. Although Jiraiya was stupid, Watergate wasn't. Don't think that just because the teacher was stupid, the disciple was stupid. I remember that he also learned sealing technique, right? There are still some things on the cage that haven't been drawn. We can ask him to take a look next time. After a pause, Orochimaru continued. This could also be considered as compensation for Jiraiya. In his heart, there was also such a sentence, but he didn't say it out loud. Okay, I'll ask him to come next time. Akira Uchiha laughed twice. What are you laughing at? Orochimaru asked this kind of meaningless laughter. Nothing, I just think that Orochimaru, sensei, is really a good person. This is the first time I've heard such a view. Orochimaru shook his head. Akira Uchiha smiled but didn't say anything. After passing by an intersection, the two began to separate and walked toward their respective resting areas. Okay, Watergate. From afar, Akira Uchiha heard Jiraiya's laughter. You should be happy I succeeded. This time I will definitely take down Tsunade. Akira Uchiha was stunned, as if he heard a big news. Hearing footsteps, Watergate, Jiraiya, Mikoto, and Jilu all turned their heads. As if seeing a great benefactor, Jiraiya happily rushed over. Hey, be careful, I'll support you, don't fall. Jiraiya grabbed Akira Uchiha's shoulder and slowly supported him. I'm not hurt, right? Akira Uchiha was a little uncertain. No, now whoever wants to hurt you has to step over my body. Jiraiya said righteously. Uncle, what's wrong with you? I won't feel at ease if you don't tell me. Jiraiya was a little excited. Didn't you teach me the method? I just took a cup to Tsunade and threw it in front of her. She agreed? No. Then what are you so proud of? She invited me to go on a trip with her. You know, Jiraiya showed a wretched smile like an adult uncle. Did she say where she's going? I suggest we go to the land of hot water. Jiraiya rubbed his chin. He wanted to take Tsunade to the hot springs and enjoy the scene, but he didn't expect Tsunade to disagree. She wants to go to a place called Short Book Street. It's said to be fun. I've never been there, I don't remember it. It's okay, you'll remember it in the future. Akira Uchiha mourned for Jiraiya for a second. That's for sure. Jiraiya began to let his imagination run wild again. Oh right, what else can you teach me about girls? This was also the purpose of Jiraiya's visit today. He wanted to confirm his relationship with Tsunade on this trip. I can only tell you to bring enough money. It's best if you withdraw all the money you've saved over the years. It's a small matter, Tsunade won't be able to spend it all anyway. Jiraiya said confidently. Akira Uchiha was speechless. The money of the Senju clan wasn't even enough for Tsunade to spend. And with that little money of yours, at most it would make a lot of noise. He suddenly understood why Jiraiya wanted to write a pornographic novel. It was because he owed a huge gambling debt. Then when are you going to leave? Jiraiya shook his head. I'm not sure yet, but it will take some time. I'll think about it after I deal with the trivial matters. This trip might take many years. As long as he stayed in the village, he would always see the darkness. He couldn't stand the light in his heart. Besides, compared to the restrained life and endless struggle in the village, Jiraiya found that he preferred the outside life. As for Orochimaru, who cares anyway, I have Tsunade. Let him solve his physiological problems by himself. Ha 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 ha. Soon, his laughter was drowned out by the chirping of cicadas. In the distant forest, the chirping of birds that were preparing to welcome the night came. The sun hadn't completely set yet, and the afterglow dyed the path of the wood leaf army into a complicated purple color. End of volume. Chapter 277. Early in the morning, in a secluded courtyard in Woodleaf, Shinakushina stood nervously under a big tree. She tried her best to stand on her tiptoes to see what was going on in the house through the window. Unfortunately, she did not see anything. It was obvious that the owner of the house was very experienced in dealing with female hooligans like her. However, the girl did not give up. She had sacrificed the time to sleep in today. She could not stay outside forever, could she? Therefore, Shinakushina stroked her hair and gently adjusted the hem of her skirt. After taking a deep breath, she walked into the house. Okay. Be gentle, be gentle. Knock, knock, knock. 3 crisp knocks mixed with the sound of birds chirping in the morning. This was the sound of Shinakushina knocking on the door. However, after a few seconds, no one came to open the door. Helplessly, she increased her strength. However, after a minute, no one came to open the door. Seeing that there was no one on the street, Shinakushina quickly walked to a bonsai. She dug around the soil and found a key. She smiled proudly and opened the door with the key. Then she tiptoed into the room. The house was very clean. It was impossible to tell that no one had lived in it for years. Shinakushina was very proud. No matter what, this was the result of her cleaning. Even her own house was not as clean as this. After admiring her masterpiece, she walked to the bedroom with ease. However, when she opened the door and saw the situation on the bed, she let out the loudest scream of her life. Ah! There were 2 people on the bed, cough, cough, cough. Of course, that was impossible. Even if the 12-year-old Akira Uchiha had such thoughts. She did not have the perfect hardware. For someone who had watched countless movies, she could not understand the language, could not recognize the car number, did not know the position, did not know the yin and yang, did not know the plot, and did not know how to drive. Uchiha-chan thinks that he's a qualified veteran driver, but then again, isn't it because he doesn't have the opportunity to practice in real combat every day? Therefore, Akira Uchiha only knew how to talk on paper. In terms of actual combat experience, he still had 0. Therefore, when he was awakened by Shinakushina's soprano voice, he was also stunned. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. Rope tree, Watergate, stop sleeping. Like a conditioned reflex, he quickly stood up and pulled out his weapon. But the more he did so, the louder Shinakushina screamed. After a few seconds, he finally woke up from his daze. This is Woodleaf, I'm overreacting. Ha 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 ha, not only are there no enemies here, There's no danger. I don't even need to wear clothes. Clothes? It was only then that Akira Uchiha felt a chill down his body. Oh no, I slept naked last night because of the coolness, right? Therefore, based on the current situation, the moonlight in front of the bed was real, but there were no shoes on the ground. After confirming the current situation, he hurriedly grabbed the blanket to cover his vitals. Alright Shinakushina, stop screaming. Akira Uchiha hurriedly stopped Shinakushina. If she continued screaming like this, the Black Ops would definitely come over. He did not want to be arrested as an exhibitionist after only returning for a day. If that really happened, how would he be able to survive in Woodleaf in the future? Through the gaps between her fingers, Shinakushina confirmed that Akira Uchiha had covered his body with the blanket. Only then did she stop screaming, but her face was still red, like a ripe tomato. Good morning. Akira Uchiha greeted her awkwardly. Humph. Shinakushina pulled open the curtains, allowing the sunlight to illuminate the room without reservation. Today's weather seems to be good. The light was so bright that Akira Uchiha could not help but squint his eyes and carefully observe Shinakushina's figure. Because she did not have to do missions, she was not wearing a ninja uniform. Her upper body was a white long-sleeved knitted cardigan with a thin pink blouse inside. Her lower body was a short skirt made of soft fabric. She seemed to have deliberately dressed up today. And compared to the sorry state she was in when she was caught a year ago, Shinakushina was indeed much more beautiful. Akira Uchiha thought to himself. He was suddenly startled. A pure person like me would actually judge a person by their appearance. Shouldn't only Rope Tree and Jiraiya be the only ones who would do such a thing? Sure enough, I've been corrupted by them. In order to get rid of this thought, he shook his head hard and faced Shinakushina again. But the little fox seemed to have misunderstood something. Especially when Akira Uchiha was not wearing any clothes and looked at her with a perverted gaze. So, her cheeks that had just recovered blushed again. 10 minutes later, Akira Uchiha finished washing up. So, why are you here so early today? He stood in the living room and asked. Yes, you didn't see wrong. He was standing and not sitting. It was not that he did not want to sit, but the living room was too clean. How clean was it? There was not even a piece of furniture. The living room that was originally a little crowded was now very empty. When Uchiha-chan came back yesterday, he thought that there was a burglar in his house, and almost went to the police station to report the burglary. He was so angry that his old pearwood table could still be used after some repairs. Chun, I'm sorry. I didn't control my strength when I was cleaning and accidentally broke it. The little fox stuck out her tongue and apologized again. After all, she had gone overboard and would have to apologize to Mikoto later. It's okay. I've been wanting to get a new one. Akira Uchiha looked calm on the surface, but his heart was bleeding. Those were all antiques, okay? Speaking of which, Shinakushina, why are you here so early today? He asked again. After the troops returned to the village yesterday, they started to mourn the dead ninjas at the memorial tablet. As the team leader, he had a lot of other things to do, so Akira Uchiha was busy for a long time. This was also why he did not hear Shinakushina knocking on his door in the morning. He was too tired. However, when he tried to recall the memory in his mind that had just woken up, he could not remember at all. Didn't we agree to go out at 8 o'clock today? After hearing Shinakushina's words, Akira Uchiha vaguely remembered that there was such an agreement. However, he was so busy that he forgot about it. But if it's 8, why are you here at 7? Well, Shinakushina was shy. She could not say that she woke up at 6, so she quickly changed the topic and said, How would I know? You don't wear clothes when you sleep. Akira Uchiha was also shy. That's not right. How did you get in? I remember that you returned the key to me yesterday. In an instant, the situation was reversed. None of your business. Little Fox was being unreasonable. She could not say that she secretly made 5 or 6 guns. After saying that, Shinakushina walked quickly to the bedroom. She searched the bedside table for a while, and then took out a book from a hidden compartment. If you ask so many questions, I will read this book with Mikoto. A book with the cover of the history of wood leaf. Could it be? Wait. That's not something a girl should read. Give me that book quickly. Why did it have to be this book of all people? That was a book of secrets that could attract even the Water Gate. It was a book of secrets with immense power. She actually found it. This was troublesome. Speaking of which, how did she find it? Akira Uchiha was hiding in a place that even the dark group could not find. Was this the strength of the blood-red pepper? Indeed, there was only a wrong name, but not a wrong nickname. Akira Uchiha could only accept his fate in the face of Little Fox's aggressive behavior. I know, I will go out with you now. Chapter 278. Because the new furniture hasn't been delivered yet, it's impossible to make breakfast, so early in the morning, Akira Uchiha took Shinakushina to the Uchiha clan's commercial street. Yes, it's the Uchiha clan's commercial street. As one of the two major clans that built the village, the Uchiha clan naturally occupies a lot of land in the center of the village. Not only that, but they also formed a set of their own commercial system. Not only for food, clothing, housing, and even weapons, they don't need to rely on the village. In addition, the Uchiha clan also has some mineral resources in their hands. Although most of them were handed over to the village when it was built, they still kept some of them. Why do the Uchiha clan always have a higher status than the civilian ninjas and small clans? Of course, strength is a big part of it, but money is also another reason. No matter where you are, having money in your pocket is always the boss, not to mention in the ninja industry that specializes in earning employment commissions. As long as you have money, you can do whatever you want. This is also the value of this world. As long as the price is enough, let alone an elite jonin. Even if you ask Naruto to protect you, it's not a problem. Otherwise, how can that Wastegato hire a rebellious ninja like Sabuza? Wouldn't it be better to just kill him and take his money? Of course, this won't work. Even a terrorist organization like the Akatsuki pays attention to the spirit of the contract. They don't kill people for money. Hey, then again, the Akatsuki is an organization that overthrows the ninja world and collects tailed beasts. So why do they take so many difficult tasks every day to earn so much money? Who is it for? You don't buy any high-tech weapons, and the organization doesn't have a big appetite like Luffy, who eats twice and runs out of liquid funds. Sure enough, it's all to buy explosive charms for Sister Conan. I'm going a bit too far. In short, the Uchiha clan is like a village within a village. Not only they don't rely on wood leaf, but most of the jonins also don't go out to teach students. They generally produce and sell their own products and directly enter the police force. So who can stand this, you say? You are just a small village, but from time to time, there will be some you independence people, let alone Sandame Naruto. Even if Akira Uchiha is Naruto, he can't tolerate this kind of situation. Therefore, in his view, the Uchiha clan's broken boat, sooner or later, they will be destroyed. But this made him, an Uchiha clansman, feel very uncomfortable, especially when he brought the little fox into the commercial street and received a warm welcome. What the fuck, what's going on? Uchiha-chan was dumbfounded. The last time he came here, he wasn't so popular. But how should he put it, even though he was stunned twice in just one morning, he still quite liked this feeling. No matter where he went, he was welcomed, all kinds of Uchiha aunties selling vegetables and eggs in his hands, and further away, there was a fat auntie who wanted to give him a big watermelon. This auntie is really enthusiastic, but if you can't squeeze in, you don't have to throw it, right? From her action, Akira Uchiha even vaguely recognized the gesture of throwing a shuriken. It seems like this auntie used to be a ninja. So he quickly pulled Shinakushina and struggled to walk forward. After all, being smashed to death by a watermelon is not a glorious way to die. The two of them struggled to get away from the pursuit of more than 10 people. They were panting a little. Chun, your popularity is even higher than when you were in school. Shinakushina tidied up her wrinkled clothes and smiled. This was not the first time she encountered such a scene, but even the ninja school's fan club was not this exaggerated. Moreover, from the words of the ordinary Uchiha clansman, she could hear a strong sense of pride. They even knew when Akira Uchiha opened his eyes, and when he defeated a famous ninja. Although these were all publicized by the village, Even Shinakushina could not remember all of it. Akira Uchiha thought about it. It should be because of the Uchiha ninjas who came to support him. The first time he made a great contribution in the Land of Rain. He was not so popular when he returned to the clan. At that time, not many people believed in his strength. But this time, the Uchiha ninjas who came to support him saw it with their own eyes, and naturally, they would come back to brag about it. In fact, it was not only because of what he thought. The great contribution 3 years ago was not so sensational. On the one hand, many people did not believe it, and on the other hand, the promotion time was too short. But as Akira Uchiha's contributions became bigger and bigger, and after 3 years of deliberate promotion by the village, and the news of the ninjas who came back from the battlefield, the Uchiha ninjas in the village could not help but believe it. More importantly, under the leadership of the current patriarch Uchiha Yamamoto, the battle between the daimyo and Sakura Shinobu didn't make much contribution, and they also suffered a lot of losses. Although the clansmen did not say it, they were quite dissatisfied. One was a 12-year-old genius who had made outstanding achievements in 2 battlefields, causing the enemy ninjas to tremble in fear. The other had been a clan leader for 20 years, but he hadn't made much achievements, and he was getting older day by day. Normal people knew which one was the hope of the clan, right? Of course, this was the opinion of the lower and middle-class Uchiha ninjas and ordinary clansmen, and in fact it was useless. Because they did not have much strength, and they did not hold any real power. To put it bluntly, they were keyboard warriors who liked to rely on the strong, like the weeds on the ground. But in any case, Akira Uchiha's existence stirred up some waves in the stagnant water of the Uchiha clan. When Akira Uchiha took Shinakushina to walk around, the little fox naturally opened her eyes. As mentioned before, the Uchiha clan has its own village, so outsiders rarely come here to buy things, and Akira Uchiha lived in the periphery of the clan land. So Shinakushina did not come to this commercial street many times. But even she could not stand it. After all, everywhere she went, she had to face the strange eyes of the Uchiha clansmen. In the past, Akira Uchiha did not know that the clan was so xenophobic. When they passed by a cake stall, Shinakushina suddenly showed a vigilant look. "What's wrong?" Akira Uchiha asked, puzzled. "That, the cake stall." Shinakushina pointed at the stall. 2 years ago, I came here with Nanoyu to shop and bought some cut cakes from his family. I said I only wanted a little, but in the end he cut it this big. Shinakushina compared with the size of the cake with her hands. Basically, she wanted to buy a cake the size of a ping-pong ball to try, but the other party cut it the size of a basketball. At that time we agreed on 1 tael, but in the end he asked me for 500 taels, and he said that it was useless to cut it, so I must buy it. Otherwise he would call the guards. Shinakushina was a little angry. Akira Uchiha was also a little speechless. It seemed that the Uchiha clan was not only xenophobic, they also knew how to force people to buy and sell. The only thing that made him curious was, could this guy also have a mutton kebab accent? This was truly a mystery. Chapter 279. Uchiha Patriarch Study. Uchiha-shan, wearing a black trench coat, was sitting on a chair. If you look carefully, you will find that he who is only in his 40s has some sparse white hair, and he doesn't look as high-spirited as he did a few years ago. Although he is the patriarch of the Woodleaf clan, he hasn't had a particularly good life these years. To be more precise, he hasn't had a particularly good life in the past 2 years. In short, troublesome things happen one after another. So you saw it with your own eyes? Uchiha-shan picked up the teacup and blew the tea leaves on it, then asked. Yes, what this subordinate said is true. At that time, I was less than 500 meters away from the 3 generations of Kazekage. Uchiha Samui said in a serious tone. Uchiha-shan nodded. After a moment of contemplation he asked. What did Akira Uchiha do today? He went shopping with the Uzumaki kid in the clan land. He's very free. Uchiha-shan smiled. Was he warmly welcomed by the clan? Yes. Then Uchiha-shan quickly stood up and explained. On the way back, I have strictly ordered the ninjas not to say anything about what happened that day. I don't know who spread it, but I will go back and thoroughly investigate. Uchiha-san laughed a little and said, there is no need to investigate. The more you prohibit it, the more they will spread it. It's better to let them spread it. You know that our foundation is these people. Why couldn't Madara take away one of our clansmen? I was obviously not the strongest in the clan at that time. How could I ascend to the position of the patriarch? It's all because of the support of the clansmen. This subordinate is afraid. Afraid that his merits will become greater and greater, and his status will become higher and higher in the eyes of the clansmen? Uchiha-san didn't speak, and he didn't dare to answer. It doesn't matter. How strong was Kuroto at that time? He is still dead. Although Uchiha Mountain spoke confidently, he was actually quite regretful in his heart. A few years ago he used the resources in his hands to insert Akira Uchiha into Orochimaru's team. His purpose was very simple. He wanted to plant a nail beside Orochimaru, the future candidate for Naruto. Even if he couldn't, he could still use his identity as Jin's orphan to infiltrate Naruto's inner circle. Originally, this was an extremely delicate move, and he had already thought of the following plot. It was nothing more than finding a reason to send Akira Uchiha into the dark operation and play a Mission Impossible drama. Naruto Sandaime wouldn't refuse. But what he didn't expect was that the Shinobi World War would start in just a few days. What's even more exaggerated is that the 10-year-old Akira Uchiha seems to have turned from a student in a ninja school to a jonin in just a few months. What a scheming boy. Uchiha Mountain didn't believe that there was a sudden outbreak. In his view, Akira Uchiha has been hiding his strength, deceiving the ninja school, deceiving Sandaime Naruto, and deceiving him. But things have reached this point, and it's no longer something he can control. Not to mention the battlefield. Even if he sends ninjas to assassinate Akira Uchiha, who can guarantee that they will be able to kill him? That's a fierce person who killed Shikaku. Uchiha Mountain sighed. Withdraw the people who are monitoring him. A ninja of his strength would have already discovered them. Yes, but do we just let him grow like this? Uchiha Mountain asked. With such strength at the age of 12, no one knows whether Akira Uchiha can grow into the next Madara. It's still necessary to suppress him. Uchiha Mountain nodded. Since the war is over, and he has become a jonin, according to the rules of the clan, he will be transferred back to the police force after a while. There is also Uchiha Mikoto. What about Sandaime Naruto? I will go and talk to him. Uchiha Mountain sneered. I want to ask Sandaime Naruto, is the police force not part of the Woodleaf's administrative system? Since the patriarch said so, Uchiha Mountain can only be speechless. Let's see if Akira Uchiha can still use it. If he can use it, then everyone will be happy, except for the position of patriarch. I can give him everything in the clan. Uchiha Mountain stood up and looked out of the window. If he can't use it, then he will have to be like Kuroto. I don't believe that even if he is a genius, he is only a 3-tomo Sharingan. How can he compete with the Manjikyu Sharingan? Uchiha Mountain looked at the patriarch's back and said, have you already opened? As long as I want, I can do it at any time. This conversation obviously can't go on anymore. After all, this kind of hard boss is not something that anyone can do. By the way, how is Fugaku? The young patriarch is working very hard. With his current strength, he can almost apply for the rank of jonin. A 17-year-old jonin is a genius in the eyes of ordinary ninjas, and is considered good in a big family, but as the future patriarch, he can only be regarded as mediocre or even mediocre. Not to mention there is an 11-year-old jonin in the family. The gap between them was not just a little bit big. Uchiha Mountain was a little puzzled. Why didn't my good bloodline pass down? Is the talent passed down from generation to generation? How is his Sharingan now? He is very proficient. Uchiha Mountain nodded with relief. Speaking of which, the biggest gain from this trip to the daimyo house is Fugaku's Sharingan. It was only 1 tomo, but now it has become 2 tomo. Not only him, many people in the clan who didn't open their eyes have opened their eyes. Uchiha Mountain complimented. How can the clansmen understand your painstaking efforts? Although we have suffered a great loss, without fighting and death, can they open their eyes? Yes, the tiger in the cage is powerful without its claws, It is just a pet. Uchiha Mountain looked out of the window and sighed, but why doesn't anyone understand? At this time Woodleaf Hospital. After a day of unbridled play, Akira Uchiha took Mikoto into the ward. Although in the previous battle, Mikoto didn't use ninjutsu, and her right hand was well protected, but he was still a little worried. If something really happens, it will be troublesome, so it is better to cure it as soon as possible. After entering the ward, Akira Uchiha was a little emotional. It was a familiar room, a familiar smell. So far, this ward has been occupied by Akira Uchiha, Shinakushina, and Mikoto. Who knows who will be the next unlucky person? He looked at Watergate and Rope Tree standing on the side with bad intentions. The two were still discussing the decoration of the ward without knowing the depth of the situation, as if they didn't know that danger was approaching. The people in the hospital said that they can only temporarily block the meridians, and they are not sure if they can cure it, so I am going to find Tsunade-sensei tomorrow. Compared to the medical ninjas in the hospital, Akira Uchiha is more confident in Tsunade's medical skills. If Tsunade can't cure it, he is going to take Mikoto to Orochimaru. After all, Uncle Snake's black technology is the best in the ninja world. He just doesn't know what will happen to Mikoto after walking around in Orochimaru's laboratory. He couldn't help but shudder. By the way, my sister is not at home, Rope Tree suddenly said. No, she just returned to the village a few days ago, and she disappeared? Anyway, she didn't come back last night. Shinakushina tilted her head and thought for a while. I don't think I saw her. Well, I think I know where she is. Where? The casino. Chapter 280. Where was Tsunade? This was not only a practical question, but also a philosophical question. Just as Akira Uchiha said, she must be in the casino. This was the same as Jiraiya being in a female bathhouse. However, there were many casinos in Woodleaf, and there were many small workshops. Akira Uchiha, who had never been there before, could not determine Tsunade's location. However, as long as he combined the three keywords, beautiful, voluptuous, and fat sheep, no matter how deep Tsunade hid, he could find her. Well, Akira Uchiha still underestimated Tsunade's ability. Whenever there was a rumor of a fat sheep appearing, he would rush there at lightning speed. However, by the time he arrived, the fat sheep had already lost all her money and left. What kind of magical power was this? The fastest record was Tsunade losing the reward of an S-rank mission in only 5 seconds. This prodigal woman. 5 seconds of being a real man was far from enough to describe such a valiant record. In addition to silently praising Jiraiya's future experience, Akira Uchiha also spent a few days to confirm Tsunade's work and rest schedule. So, after a few days of preparation, he walked to the Senju clan on time. The Senju clan's territory was in the center of the village. There was a very busy snack street in front of the gate. The Uchiha clan and the Senju clan were actually very close to each other. The reason was that in addition to the small space in the center, the most important reason was that it was convenient for Madara and Hashirama. Well, to discuss the important matters in the village. However, Akira Uchiha had been looking after Mikoto in the hospital recently, so he walked out of the Woodleaf Hospital and took the time to buy some breakfast. For the time being, it was almost noon. About half an hour later, he arrived at the empty Senju clan's territory. After crossing the wall, he walked toward a relatively luxurious building. Although there were only a few people left in the Senju clan, they usually lived in different places. Rope Tree lived near the gate, while Shinakushina lived near Mikoto's small courtyard. That was already deep in the clan's territory. As for Tsunade, she originally lived near Shinakushina, but since Mikoto passed away, she moved away to avoid touching the scenery. Therefore, Shinakushina and Rope Tree did not accompany Akira Uchiha to look for Tsunade. He could handle this kind of thing alone. However, after knocking on the door of the small building, no one responded for a long time. Is she pretending that she's not home? Uchiha-chan was sure that Tsunade was inside, so he used the word pretend. Therefore, he persevered and knocked on the door again, as if he wouldn't leave until the person inside agreed to his request. If it's takeout, just leave it at the door. After a while, Tsunade's half-dead voice was heard. Who the F***CK is here to deliver takeout to you? I'm not Mate 1. However, looking at the food in his hand, Akira Uchiha was a little speechless. If he knew that Tsunade ordered takeout, he would not have brought food. It's me, Sensei Tsunade. He paused for a moment and said. The door was silent for a long time. When Akira Uchiha lost his patience, Tsunade's voice was heard again. It's you. Why are you so free today? Don't you need to take your team on a mission? I want to rest for a while after the war, so I haven't been on a mission recently. Oh, what a coincidence. I was thinking the same thing. Of course, Akira Uchiha knew what she was thinking. Otherwise, she would not have left her work in the hospital and the mission of training Rope Tree to wander around alone. But, can you open the door first? Well, wait a minute. I'm putting on my clothes. I heard that sleeping naked is a trend in Woodleaf recently, so I tried it yesterday. Shinakushina, oh Shinakushina, why is your mouth so big? After a few seconds, Tsunade, who was in her pajamas, finally opened the door. Well, why are you looking for me today? Tsunade asked knowingly. She naturally knew that Akira Uchiha wanted her to treat Mikoto. However, this kind of injury was not a big deal for her, it was only average. Since there was no danger to her life, and it was a rare opportunity to tease her student, and teach him a lesson to let him know the responsibility of a captain. Why not? I'm just here to play. Akira Uchiha forced a smile. He knew Tsunade's character very well, so he did not fall for it. Play? Tsunade was very amused. Me and you? What's so fun about that? You're still too young, little brat. If you want to play with me, wait a few more years. If Sensei Tsunade insists on leading the conversation in the direction of ambiguity, I have no objections. When the time comes, the one who will be blamed by the public will be you. After all, I'm still underage. In the next second, the wooden door of the small building exploded in an instant. Countless fragments flew past Akira Uchiha. Tsunade clenched her fists, but her face was like spring breeze. What did you just say? Can you repeat it again? It's just the literal meaning. Don't get agitated. Akira Uchiha pushed the non-existent glasses on the beam. I'm really here to play with you. On the level of gambling. After pausing for a moment, he added the last sentence as well. Gambling? You know how to gamble too? Tsunade showed a look of disdain. Akira Uchiha smiled slyly. Have you heard of the Golden Flower explosion? Chapter 281. Tsunade loved gambling all her life. No matter what, she never gave up on this hobby. That's why she was later crowned as a fat sheep. After our bold speculation and careful evidence, we finally came to a conclusion. Gambling is actually a way for this great ninja to commemorate the first Naruto. Or it's a way for her to divert attention after experiencing so many vicissitudes of life. Or it's actually a way for her to warn those who want to embark on the road of gambling. The above is taken from the legendary Sannin, the unknown side, also known as prostitution, gambling, and drugs. Compared to the serious nonsense above, Akira Uchiha is much more realistic. He has seen through Tsunade's nature. She's a gambler. So when he proposed gambling, Tsunade's interest was aroused. After thinking for a while, she let him in. As for the broken door, that old man Sandaime Hokage should soon send the Umbu to fix it. Boy, what do you want to play? By the way, since last night, my gambling luck has been off the charts. After entering the main hall, Tsunade came to the only short table. With a wave of her hand, she swept the mountain of empty beer cans and a large pile of lunchboxes that were about to emit a strange smell to the ground. Seeing this scene, Akira Uchiha's mouth almost fell to the back of his head. Goddess disillusioned. But he can't help it. Who told him to ask for help? Even if he's a clean freak, he can only endure it. I'm not very good at poker or dice, but since it's a game, let's try something new. After he finished speaking, he took out a deck of newly bought, unopened poker cards from his pocket. After all this talk, isn't it still a game of poker? Tsunade snorted a little. I played all night yesterday and I didn't lose. Really? Chun was a little flustered. Just a few days ago, He was still the fat sheep that everyone loved, and now his luck has suddenly changed? What the hell is going on? If Tsunade is lucky, who knows how many people will suffer and how many people will be unlucky? Therefore, it's obviously not a good idea to look for Tsunade at this time. That's not right. According to my observation, you should have come back last night. Where did you go to play all night? Don't be so surprised. Can't I play alone? Then I'll have to ask my shadow clone. Tsunade said matter-of-factly. Usually I call her 2P. Of course, there's 3P. Do you want to see it? Forget it. You'd better keep that thing to yourself. As Uchiha-chan began to explain the rules, Tsunade was disappointed. It's still a competition of points. What kind of tricks can he play? Don't say that. The rules are different. It's not just about points. It's a kid's game. If you keep talking, I'm going back. Why don't you continue with your 3P? Don't. Tsunade stepped over the table and grabbed Akira Uchiha's arm. I won't say anything. Golden Flower is a deck of poker cards excluding the king and queen. There are a total of 4 suits and 52 cards. There are a total of 6 types. Akira Uchiha spread out all the cards in his hand. They are divided into leopard, straight flush, golden flower, tractor, pair, and single. The comparison of the card types will naturally follow this order. Tsunade listened to Akira Uchiha's explanation while his eyes seemed to be shining. Of course, his target was not Akira Uchiha, but the cards on the table. Akira Uchiha had already foreseen this result. After all, this was a chess game that was popular in his previous life. Not only was it easy to learn, it was also easy to get addicted to gambling. Of course, the most important thing was that it was easy to cheat in Golden Flower. Akira Uchiha was an expert in this field. As for whether or not he would be discovered by Tsunade, Chin didn't dare to say anything about other gambling methods, but at the very least he was confident in the Golden Flower, not to mention that he added so many points to his hand seals and practiced his hand speed for so long, so how could he not fool a newbie who just entered the pit? As for the rules, Tsunade-sensei should be clear. I won't say much. Akira Uchiha revealed a harmless smile. Then I'll deal the cards? Tsunade, who was inexplicably confident in her luck, thought for a while before nodding. But in the end she added, Kid, you know the rules of ninja gambling, right? Of course, it's not allowed to use chakra, it's not allowed to use actions that exceed the limits of ordinary people's vision. It's not allowed to use bloodline limits or secret techniques, right? Since you know it clearly, then it's easy. Tsunade was full of confidence. But there was no suspense in the first game. She lost. Tsunade? There must be a mistake somewhere. It's only the first game. Continue. She appeared, exasperated gambler mode. However, the next 7 games were no different from the first game. Oh, there were still some differences. Tsunade's cards were getting smaller and smaller. In the end, it was the worst card, 235. In all honesty, Akira Uchiha did not cheat even once. It seemed that Tsunade's so-called luck was only in her 2P situation. What an interesting expression. It's an interesting time. Tsunade-sensei, you've played for so long. It's getting late. I'll come and play with you in 2 days. After saying this, Akira Uchiha did not clean up the scattered cards on the table. Instead, he stood up and walked toward the door. 1 step, 2 steps, Akira Uchiha calculated in his heart while waiting for Tsunade to call him. Sure enough, when he was about to walk out of the living room, Tsunade moved. However, she did not speak as expected. Orochimaru has long commented that Tsunade was very masculine. This comment was very accurate, so a strong force pressed on Akira Uchiha's shoulder. Kacha. The wooden floor, which had been in disrepair for a long time, was soon overwhelmed. You want to go back after playing a few games? How can it be so easy? Are you rushing to the red light district to find Jiraiya? No, I'm rushing back to see Mikoto. Right now, Shinakushina and Nanoyu are accompanying her. Leave Mikoto's injury to me. Even if her injury needs to be treated, the hospital needs to prepare the medicine. It can't be prepared in 1 or 2 days. There's no hurry. As a price, you have to play with me for half an hour. No, an hour. Tsunade counted with her fingers and found that half an hour was not enough for her, so she quickly changed her words. Akira Uchiha nodded calmly and then reluctantly said, "Since Tsunade-sensei has asked as a disciple, how can I refuse? In fact, it's not only Mikoto who needs to be treated, there's also Ji-Lu's father lying at home. With the face of the Hyuga patriarch, he can naturally persuade Sandaime Naruto to let him come to Tsunade, but since he promised Ji-Lu, Akira Uchiha has to personally say it to make her feel at ease." So in the following time, Akira Uchiha honestly sat at the low table in the living room and really played with Tsunade for more than an hour. In order not to let Tsunade lose too badly and have a sense of resistance to this game, Akira Uchiha still threw the game a few times. In the end, Tsunade, who won a few games, finally patted Akira Uchiha's shoulder with satisfaction. And after the end, she personally sent him to the door of the entrance. "Come to play next time, I'll wait for you." Tsunade didn't mention the so-called treatment at all. It's said that people become shrewd with age. It seems that this auntie in her 20s is really shameless. Akira Uchiha smiled and said nothing. Since Tsunade said that she will prepare, then she will definitely prepare. As for the eyes of Hyuga Sky, he will talk about it next time. Anyway, he doesn't need to worry that Tsunade won't fall for it. Chapter 282. After coming out of Tsunade's place, Akira Uchiha walked towards his home. Because he stayed in the hospital for a few days, he had to go back to get a change of clothes. Mikoto was under the care of Shina Kushina, so there was no problem for him to go at night. But before he took a few steps, he was stopped by someone. The person in the lead was Akira Uchiha's acquaintance, Hyuga Chiofang. "Chiofang-senpai, I haven't seen you for almost a year, right?" The two exchanged a little greeting. Akira Uchiha met him on the battlefield in the Land of Rain. At that time, he saved the Hyuga branch family's member. After that, they met several times in the country of Kawa, but there was no news of him since a year ago. Akira Uchiha thought that he died on the battlefield. Later, he asked Ji-Lu and learned that he retreated to the village with the Hyuga clan's young patriarch. "Our patriarch knows that you have nothing to do recently, so he asked me to invite you to the clan for a gathering." For the kid in front of him, Hyuga Chiofang is very respectful. Although the other party is younger than him by more than 10 years, the gap between the two is too big in terms of strength, not to mention that Akira Uchiha saved his life. Hearing Hyuga Chiofang's words, Akira Uchiha was a little puzzled. In addition to being very familiar with Ji-Lu, he only met the Hyuga clan's patriarch once in the Land of Rain. At that time, after he defeated Shikaku with Kirin, it was Hyuga Akira who saved him and Sarutobi Shinsuke, and then there was no intersection. So this invitation seems a bit too abrupt. Is Ji-Lu's father going to settle accounts with him? "No, I didn't kidnap his daughter, at most. I just came up with some bad ideas behind his back." Although he was puzzled, Akira Uchiha didn't hesitate at all. If that's the case, then it's better to accept. After that, the three of them walked towards the Hyuga clan. The Hyuga clan is located in the south of the village. In terms of its isolation, it is not much worse than Uchiha. Of course, this was also a common problem for such large clans. After all, how many years had Woodleaf existed? To put it bluntly, even the Fire Nation's history couldn't compare to theirs. They were confident that they knew how to preserve their bloodline better than anyone else, but it was precisely this arrogance in their bones that led to their current situation. They didn't understand that the times had changed. They also didn't know that if they didn't change, it would mean extinction. However, everything is afraid of comparison. Compared to Uchiha, the Hyuga clan's way of doing things is not so extreme. This is related to Woodleaf's suppression of Uchiha and the various interests involved, but it is undeniable that the Hyuga clan is better than Uchiha. In this war, Hyuga Akira, as the patriarch, used a forbidden technique to resist Chiyo's attack. Although there was a problem with his eyes, it was worth it. Compared to the Uchiha jumping down from the top of the mountain, the difference is really not small. However, this is not surprising. The overall strength of the Hyuga clan is there. They also want to be arrogant and domineering, but they are not strong enough. The most typical example is Naruto. Relying on his strength and background, he married the legal heir of the Hyuga clan. According to the custom, Naruto should marry into the family and change his name to Hyuga Naruto. So Hayashi's heart is bitter. If this happened to the Uchiha clan, Naruto would want to snatch Sasuke, and Fugaku would beat him up. Cough, cough, cough. The chances of being beaten up are also very high. In short, in this respect, Watergate's luck is not very good. Obviously, they are both Naruto and they are both heroes. Why does his son not have to marry into the family, but he is inexplicably married into the family? I am not satisfied with the real name system. When the three stepped into the Hyuga clan's land, the two brothers Hyuga Hayashi and Hyuga Hizashi were already standing at the door. Son, long time no see. Hayashi stepped forward and took Akira Uchiha's hand as if they were familiar with each other. Compared to Hayashi's enthusiasm, Hizashi was a bit cold. He just nodded and said nothing. As for why Akira Uchiha can distinguish who is the older brother and who is the younger brother at a glance, even though they are twins. Come on, with that bitter and unsmiling face, if he is not the younger brother, how can he be the older brother? In other words, if Akira Uchiha was planted with the caged bird, it is estimated that in a few years, he will become like this. Time made the most lively person become silent. This sentence was not without reason. Even if you look carefully, you will find that Hizashi, the younger brother, is actually a bit more mature than his older brother. If you don't know, you will think that Hizashi is a few years older than Hayashi. Since young clan leader is here, we will go back first. Hyuga Akiya and the ninjas who were with him bowed respectfully and quickly retreated. Although the words were very respectful to Hayashi, there was an indescribable alienation in the tone. Hayashi opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he could only sigh silently. Akira Uchiha looked on coldly, but didn't say anything. Otherwise, what can he say? Stay and eat? Come on, this will only make it difficult for everyone. So he simply shut up. When the three walked into the living room, except for the Hyuga clan leader and Ji Lu, no one else was there. Ha ha ha, son, you are here. I haven't seen you for 2 years. You should have grown a lot taller, right? Hyuga Akiya's eyes are not very good, so he can only vaguely see. With the help of Ji Lu, he slowly walked forward. After the two exchanged greetings, he immediately asked Akira Uchiha to take a seat. Akira Uchiha nodded and then sat next to Ji Lu. I heard from Ji Lu that you've been back for a few days. Uncle has been busy with the clan's affairs, and didn't have the time to call you over to welcome you back. This matter is my fault. Chin, please don't blame Uncle. What's the matter? I am just an idle person. Haha, if even a would-leave hero like you is an idle person, then shouldn't I retire? Hyuga Akiya took a sip of tea. But seriously, I have to admit that I am old. Compared with a genius like you, I should have retired to the second line long ago. You are joking. If it weren't for Senpai blocking Chio on the Land of Rain battlefield, we don't know how many losses we would have suffered. Akira Uchiha complimented with a smile. Ha 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 ha. Hearing his words, Hyuga Akiya seemed to enjoy it, but when he talked about Chio he sighed. I didn't expect the former flower of shinobi to fall like this. Akira Uchiha raised his eyebrows. How can he answer this kind of words? Looking at Hyuga Akiya's regretful look, he almost directly said she was 18 years old that year. I was 18 years old too. In short, in a few days, the Sand Ninja will come over to sign the defeat agreement. After 3 rounds of meal, the maid of the Hyuga clan added a lot of new dishes, and Hyuga Akiya said this intentionally or unintentionally. Huh, so soon? I thought it would take until the Land of Thunder and Land of Earth had a winner. Akira Uchiha thought for a while and said, they can't wait any longer. Chio and the 3 generations of Kazekage are in our hands. Not to mention that the village needs someone to preside over the overall situation. They also need someone to bear the anger of the daimyo. And I heard that Shikaku appeared in the sand-hidden village. This guy really knows how to loot a burning house. Knowing that the 3 generations of Kazekage is not here, he went crazy to steal from them. As one of the ninja who created one of the greatest achievements in this war, you must be present when the Sand Village signs the defeat agreement. Oh, such a grand scene. People may not be able to catch up with it once in a lifetime. Do you feel very excited? It's okay, I feel a little hungry. After handing the empty bowl to Ji-Lu, Akira Uchiha said so. Haha, you kid. Hyuga Akiya smiled and shook his head. This character of playing the pig to eat the tiger is completely different from Kuroto. I'm just telling you that, but I want to talk to you about something else, he suddenly said seriously. There is news that the Uchiha clan seems to want to accept the task of escorting Sakura Shinobu out of the Land of Fire after signing the agreement. Akira Uchiha took a cold breath. When it comes to being an old fox and being well-informed, he really can't compare with the middle-aged man in front of him. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.